Chiga found himself in a strange place with mountains. The entire area was surrounded by dense clouds. A huge humanoid creature noticed Chiga's arrival and called him a god among humans. Multiple soul masters tried to chase the creature away with their powers, but he scoffed, saying their blows were useless. The strong gusts of wind during the battle between Chige and the soul masters almost blew Chige out of his seat. Soon, the huge humanoid monster turned around and noticed Chiga standing behind it. The monster reached his hand towards Chige. At the same time, Chige was very scared and started to beg the monster not to do that. After which, Chiga woke up in his bed from this strange dream, with the words that he didn't want to die. Chigi held his head with a heavy sigh and realized that this was all just a scary nightmare. Yawning, Chigo stood up and decided to make himself something to eat. He was quite hungry after such dreams. But Chige changed his mind about eating as he was late for work, so he decided to hurry up. In the summer of 2017 in the city, Hongshu Bay, after a solar storm 18 years ago, reconstruction began. After the city was rebuilt, it became a center for the development of science and technology of the whole country. In the western city, Chige was moonlighting on the food street, a job he had managed to get to after all. Chiga was jumping from side to side in a small cake costume, advertising the store. Chiji's success was not the best. Passers-by were passing through him as quickly as possible and were not happy about his publicity. Every day, Chigo suffered from the scorn in the eyes of others. They could scoff and take pictures. Chigi already felt as if he was going crazy. He didn't understand why he himself had gone for this job, as the ridicule from the people around him was like torturous. A little boy was walking with his mom, and noticing Chige, he remarked on his coolness. Chige liked what the boy said, but the boy started to scoff, calling Chige's costume looking like poop. This broke Chige even more. The boy called Chige and his costume disgusting, ugly, and multiple bad words. Chige was furious and wanted to turn to the boy to vent his anger towards him, but he was distracted by someone shouting his name. It was Chige's boss. A tall, black-haired man with a bouffant mustache was bringing the purchases into the store. Noticing the scene with the boy, the boss asked if this was how Chige treated the customers. Chige didn't know what to say. The boss asked Chige to stop and told him to follow him to the store now. The boss threw a wad of money on the table and said it was Chige's salary for today. The boss asked Chige to take that money and leave. Chige didn't understand why so, and asked the boss to wait. Chige asked the boss why he was being fired. After all, he has a smart face, long legs, and a loud voice. The boss said that after he gave the costume to Chige, people started avoiding the store. The front of the costume said egg, and the back a roll. It was supposed to attract customers, but it became a waste of money. Chige decided to leave, and the boss picked up on what bad personalities young people have in these times. Chige realized that he already had to leave. The egg roll suit was ruining his body and the day. But in a way, it was for the best for Chige. He would be able to dedicate himself more in today's match. In the old neighborhood, Chige lived in the northern white stone house, and his match was already starting in the evening. Chige was completely enveloped in the game, and soon he had one more guy to defeat. Taking up the mouse and keyboard, he focused on the game, and everything was going according to his plan. He waited for his opponent to follow Chige's ingenious moves in the game, and it was working out. But even doing his ingenious plan, his opponent had yet to lose, and Chige began to try even harder. He decided to act on his own, and then went in search of his opponent, who was hiding somewhere. Soon, Chige was able to do what he had been striving so hard to do. He raised his hand up and shouted, declaring his victory. After a month of fighting, Chige was finally at the top. Becoming the winner was really not easy. Chige glanced at the screen and noticed that the losing guy had sent him some kind of message. The opponent wished him good luck and expected him for the next fight. Chige took it as if the opponent was cursing him. Chige's opponent was displeased. He thought that Chige had too good an opinion of himself. Still, the guys didn't have the best opinion of each other, and were waiting for the next match to decide everything. Chige wanted to write to his opponent, saying he was ready to fight again any time. But Chige decided not to write anything since the opponent would come to him sooner or later. The girl asked Chige to open her mouth wider, after which she fed him strawberries from her hands. A dozen girls in maid suits surrounded Chige. They were saying nice words to him in every way possible. But Chige was just having a dream while he was sleeping. His dream was distracted by someone reporting the incoming delivery. Chige was dissatisfied as to why and who dared to wake him up from such a wonderful sleep. Looking at his watch, Chige also didn't like the fact that it was only 4 in the morning and had ordered a delivery for him. The delivery man wouldn't stop talking, and finally Chige decided to get up and said he was already heading for the door. Chige opened the door and asked the supplier why he was delivering things so early. The delivery man said hello and asked Chige to sign, then handed over the box. Chige was a little frightened by the man. The delivery man gave the box to Chige and, fixing his cap, told Chige to take care of this thing. Chiju didn't understand how the delivery man knew his name, but then he remembered that their company spoke names. Chige happily took his knife and opened the box. Inside the box he noticed a small wooden box. Thinking about it, Chige realized that it could have been a gift for winning that game, but he couldn't come so quickly. Last time, the prize for champion garnered quite a bit of public interest and excitement. Chii rejoiced, hoping that it was the same sword from the last tournament, then took out the blade from the box. But looking at Chiga's blade, he was quickly disappointed. Raising it up, he realized that it wasn't that at all. The blade turned out to be a small iron dagger with a blue crystal at the hilt, and was nothing like the one Chige had thought of. Chigi was angry. He wasn't a 3-year-old child and expected the prize better as the champion of the game. The courier who delivered Chige's blade had already left and started calling someone, nervously waiting for an answer. The man said as he delivered the blade to Chige. Then he received a small reply from the other line. The interlocutor added one more thing to the courier to go back immediately back. Geez, Chige was distracted by the ringing on his phone. That's what took away the anger at the blade, as all attention went to the phone. Chigi was pissed off that everyone had started waking up so terribly early. He threw the dagger into the box and ventured to pick up the phone. Chige got a call from some guy he knew. Chige needed to settle things with this guy. A loud voice stunned Chige. Someone said hello to him and called Chige a gentleman in addition to that. Chige said that he would find his interlocutor and settle his questions about the morning noise, since even last time, their wonderful delivery had gotten him in trouble. The interlocutor said that hearing such a thing was painful to his heart, but Chige had strict working conditions, and only they could act as employers. The interlocutor suggested a new application of Chige's work. It was in the southern Baishi-jo. Upon hearing the job offer, Chige got excited and said that he would be there soon. South Baishi-jo was located on Baishi Island across the sea outside the city. It is known as the capital of future technology, with most of the companies being advanced technology companies. Chigo caught a passage across the sea and waited for his train to head to southern Baishi-jo. Chigo was rejoicing at the fortunate opportunity to work in southern Baishi-jo. In his thoughts, he suddenly noticed a new message on his phone. The report said that the delivery of the gift for Chige's top player title would be delayed by a week. Chigi didn't understand what was sent to him then, but he decided to distract himself with others. Some kid started calling for his dad to look out the window. As it turned out, train number 16 was traveling through an underwater section. It was a glass tunnel that overlooked the ocean. Chiga didn't think it was something to get so excited about, and just thought it was all boring. But still, the uninterested Chige was distracted by something in the middle of a boring train ride. It was the red-haired girl who looked at the underwater section, adding that she was living up to her reputation after all. The child asked his father if the ocean was real, because it was so beautiful. His father laughed and said it was really beautiful, but it was a fake. The boy started asking more questions, with the goal of finding out if even the fish weren't real. That got the girl's attention. The girl turned to the boy and told him that the real sea was much darker and not at all as beautiful. Chiga secretly heard what the girl was talking about how black and dim the sea was. But Chiga was shocked when the girl turned in his direction, and they locked gazes together. The girl's gaze struck Chige. He was embarrassed and his head was filled with thoughts of how beautiful she was. Seeing Chiga's reaction to her, the girl just smiled and laughed a little towards Chige. Chiji's heart seemed to jump out of her chest. The girl's laughter was terribly cute and beautiful. Chigi started to feel nervous. He tried to put some words together, but he couldn't manage anything. Finally, the final stop had come. South Baishi-jo. Chigo was still sitting, confused. Chige came up with an ingenious plan. Instead of being stupid, he wanted to just crash into the girl by accident. But as it turned out, Chige wasn't the only one who had the same kind of idea. In the end, Chigo was the very last to get off the number 16 train, but at least he was in the right place. Chiga decided to hurry, because he didn't want to be late for his new job in a good place. Chiga hurried to the place of his new job. This place was in the Platinum Towers of southern Baishi-jo. In one office, a woman complained that she couldn't win anything, and only lost money. Playing the woman once again, luck turned around and she got a good hand, which meant a high probability win. The woman who was full in the game was distracted by Chige's voice. He walked into the office and apologized. Chiga bent down to the woman and asked if Gudan's brother was here. The woman asked him to keep quiet, as she had almost won the game. Chigu apologized again and said he was just looking for a job. The woman told him to go down the hall. While Chigo was walking down the corridor, he heard someone's voice. It was a showdown between someone. Some guy flew out of the room on the right side of the room from the powerful blow. It was a blessing Chige didn't get hit by it. Turning around, Chiho noticed someone coming out from behind the door. The man behind the door said, his patience breaking down. Gritting his teeth, the man added that the guy he threw away was a lowlife. The guy who was thrown out sat on the ground and pleaded with the man, saying he was wrong and would do anything. While Chigo was watching such a cruel picture, someone came up from behind and called his name. The guy hugged Chige and said he was looking for him. Chige asked the red-haired guy what kind of huddle the guys in front of them were doing. Labor Service Mediation Manager Gu Dan said it's just an adult raising a child. Gao Dan started pushing Chigo, justifying that everyone was already waiting for Chige and Go Dan to do so. The guys reached the room and Gu Dan said that this is the right room where the interview is located. Chigi noticed how many guys were looking for work for themselves. Gu Dan said he would be back soon, for he needed information. Chigi glanced down and noticed that one of the guys who came for the interview was constantly looking at him. Chigi considered the guy, but even so, he didn't understand why the guy was looking at him so intently. Gu Dan returned and asked Chigo to sit down. Holding up the paper, he said that he finally had information. These papers were the guy's orders, each having to take one paper from the entire stack. Taking the papers, the boys were surprised. They had orders from first-class companies printed on them. Chige was shocked himself. Kongwan Yizi was in the top 3 greatest companies in the world. One of the guys asked if they could really work there. Go Dan smirked. Afterwards, Gao Dan's mouth said that the guys could really work there, but there was one. But the introduction fee wasn't cheap, but Gu Dan was generous to give the guys a discount. The final price was 50,000. 50,000 was an awful lot of money. One of the guys had just suggested to Gao Dan that he rob a bank at those markups. Chiga couldn't even imagine that kind of money. He could barely afford food, and 50,000 was a lot of money. Chiga didn't guess right away, but remembering how the guy in the other room was beaten up, Chige realized that this was a den of thieves. The white-haired guy read the piece of paper and wasn't interested at all. He wasn't even surprised at the large price tag. The white-haired guy turned to Gu Dan and asked if it was blackmail, since it was all very obvious. Chigi realized that he wasn't the only one who noticed it, and said that he noticed the blackmail as well. However, even if it was blackmail, there was no way out. If the guys didn't pay up, they'd just get beaten up. The white-haired guy looked at Chige and remarked that he was caught in a very tricky situation. It was like a hamster versus a snake. Would it be eaten, or would it fight to break free? The 3 guys just decided to leave, saying that they were refusing the offer. One Chige and Go Dan sat motionless. Gao Dan said the guys can only leave when they pay the counseling fee. Afterward, a muscular guy named Diane walked into the room and stopped the guys from leaving. Gao Dan told the white-haired guy not to try to act smart. The white-haired guy replied that the complexity had increased. Diane asked the white-haired guy if he wanted to fight. To get out of it, the white-haired guy said he was using the card for a contribution. Chiga swept up that the danger of being beaten was true, and escaping from a group of thieves would not be easy. Brother Hua came to the thieves' ward. The secretary was very happy to see him, adding that she had missed him. Brother Hua took note of the secretary's beauty and invited her to go out for coffee together. Hua's brother also suggested that the assistant go over to Moxie's for a little while after their coffee outing. Gao Dan rushed over to say hello to Brother Hua, leading those who hadn't paid the fee behind him. Looking at Brother Hua, Chi-gi realized that this person was not the best in the world either. Gao Dan said he had to conduct business anyway, and asked Lili to give him a terminal to withdraw money. Brother Hua told Gu Dan that he could use the 2nd floor for business. Since they were able to earn quite a lot from those dolls, Brother Hua added that they had already opened the 3rd floor in half a month, and he had a student in his hands whom he intended to train well. While the thieves were discussing the success of their business, a loud sound distracted them all. Gu Dan asked Brother Hua what the hell they were doing and assumed they were breaking down the 3rd floor. Later, a couple guards started running after someone, shouting to keep her from leaving. Taking a closer look, Chigo realized that it was someone familiar. The girl asked him to step back. Chiji couldn't leave so quickly. He needed a little more time to react. At this time, the girl stumbled. As the lady fell, she fell on top of Chige. Chige himself remembered that bow on the girl's shirt. The girl ended up catching Chige, and both of them fell down. She started apologizing while Chige said it was okay. The girl started to find out Chige's condition. Chige himself said that everything was fine and wanted to know why she was here. The fleeing girl was pulled back by her hair, saying she couldn't run away from here. The man who took the girl by the hair apologized to Hua's brother for running away and said it wouldn't happen again. The Chiga sitting on the ground told the guys to immediately stop and leave her alone. One of the thieves looked at Chige and asked what kind of child dared to speak to him. Another thief from the faction replied that it was just business, and Chige didn't need to meddle with it. Gaodan explained that these were people from the agency, and Chige shouldn't have blindly meddled in their affairs. After that, an evil smirk came out on Gudan's face as he looked at Chige. Chige heard the girl's screams and turned around there, after which his face was covered in surprise. The thieves started undressing the girl. She screamed at them to get off her and called them all sorts of names. The girl screamed even more, for when she was held by her hair, she was in pain. Chige was angry at this. The thieves and the girl said they were leaving and wouldn't bother the boys again. Gudan wished them good luck. Chige had had enough of observing this picture, and he started to stand up, after which he turned to the thieves. Kiwi rushed towards the thief to hit him. Gudan saw this and was shocked by Chige's recklessness. Chige punched the thief in the face and told him to immediately let the girl go. The punch was precise and strong. The thief flew back from Chige's blow, doing a couple of flips after a powerful punch from Chige. Gaodan asked Chige if he was mad, for he had hit a very respectable man. After that, Chige pondered over what he had done while the girl silently thanked him. Chige realized that he had acted rashly, and this would not turn out well for him. In the end, Chigo decided to grab the girl's hand. She didn't realize what was going on. Chigu decided to run away with the girl. She had no choice as Chigo grabbed her hand. Brother Hua turned to the other thieves and asked what they were doing. The thieves asked Hua to calm down. Brother Hua said he wouldn't rest until they caught the bastard Chige and the girl. The thieves understood and decided to follow Brother Hua's order, and then they rushed to chase after Chige. Dian told the others to wait meekly while they looked for the girl and Chige, or else he would break the legs of those who ran away. Dian told his partners to chase after Chige, and started running after him himself. The white-haired guy said goodbye to everyone and said he was leaving. The other boys were afraid of Diane's threats. Chige and the girl ran away with all their legs. The thieves threatened to leave Chige crippled or something worse. Chige told the girl that she must go forward, for they can't run away like this forever. After which, Chigo turned around and threw the item box over to the people running after them. A pile of things blocked the passage and halted the thieves from pursuit, for the things falling upon them were quite numerous. Shiju continued to run away, calling it a tactic, while the thieves threatened to retaliate against him for it. Chigi turned back to the girl and asked her why she didn't run further, after deciding to look forward himself. A group of thieves were already waiting for the guys in front. Brother Hua asked if Chige really hoped to escape using the ladder. Gaodan offered Chigo to give them the girl, and in return he would give him a 50% discount on the fee. Chi refused and added that he wasn't going to give up halfway through the endeavor he had started. Gaodan laughed and said that Chige would not come out of here quietly. Brother Hua, on the other hand, asked to bring Chige directly to him. Dian ordered the rest of the brothers to help attack Chige, after which the group rushed at the guy. Chige began to ponder for a plan. The girl, on the other hand, was scared and asked Chige what they should do. The thief behind Brother Hua ordered Dian to show no mercy as Chige punched him in the face. Chige decided to bypass the thieves. He ended up pulling the girl behind him and fooled the thieves. With Chia running and the girl left to pass through the last thief, who was the one keeping the girl locked up, Chigu started to run at the guy and swinging said that he would get what he deserved one more time. In the end, Chige tricked him and didn't choose to hit him. He threw the terminal on the ground and continued to run away. Brother Hua took the thief by his shirt and asked why the hell he was so scared, then ordered him to further pursue Chige. The thieves understood the order and rose and gathered together to continue their pursuit. There was no success in finding the boys. The thieves tried again and again, but all to no avail. Chigi and the girl watched the alleyway so they wouldn't be found by the thieves that were nearby. Chigi turned around and took another look at the thieves before noting how close they were to the failure. The girl asked how much longer they could hide in the alley. Chige replied that a little longer and they would leave. The girl smiled and sweetly thanked Chige for rescuing her from the clutches of the dirty thieves. Chigi averted his gaze and said that there was no need for thanks. After all, he had done what he had to do. The thieves finally left towards evening, and Chige was relieved to be able to call it a good day. In the evening, on the main street of Bihaiwan, after sunset, the nightlife of people in southern Baishijo has just begun. Chigi and the girl were walking down the street. The girl noticed that there were a lot of people on the road ahead of them. After which, the girl turned to Chige and asked if those thieves would come after them again. Chige said that he didn't think they would come after them again, and they could be calm. The girl poked Chige's nose and remarked that he was very confident in his words after such a predicament. Chige became hurt and the girl started laughing, after which she apologized for what she had done. The girl said it was her fault and she shouldn't have laughed. Chige, on the other hand, just remained silent. Remembering something, the lady turned to Chige and with a smile decided to say something to him. The girl revealed that her name was Taozi, after which she wanted to know Chige's name. Chige smiled and decided to justify Taozi's interest, then proudly mouthed his name. Translated, Chige's name meant 7 brothers. Taozi laughed from that. Chige said it wasn't that important how many brothers he had. Chige revealed that his name is not at all because he has 7 brothers. It's because it's a mixture of words. Chi is taken from the name of a historical figure, and Ge is from the Sessho world. Taozi sneered and said she had to thank Chige somehow, but he replied that it was no big deal. After which, Chige came up with a plan while Taozi rubbed her nose due to her recent sneeze. Chige took out his sweater and gave it to Taozi to keep her warm. Taozi was surprised and apologized for being imposing. Chige asked Taozi if those thieves had done anything since her shirt was slightly open after running away. Taozi slapped Chige and said that it wasn't what he thought. Her clothes got torn when she tried to save someone. Taozi added that the thieves had duped her best friend, and she was the one she was trying to save. This supposedly advertising company is actually a simple black company. They forced her to take pictures like this. Taozi's friend used the time she was given to rest to send Taozi a message, and Taozi didn't have time to even tell anyone that, so she decided to rush in there herself. Taozi and her friend were able to smash the hardware, knock the thieves to the ground, and then started running away. As Taozi was running away, she tripped, which is how she came to meet Chige while dealing with the thieves. Taozi slapped Chige once more, and said that she told this for the sake of Chige not having vulgar thoughts. Chige was surprised at Taozi's bravery, and asked her who she was to break into the bandits' den alone. But Taozi remained silent and simply said that she was happy to meet Chige in this office. Taozi's cuteness stunned Chigo, and he didn't know what to say, but he had to think of something urgently. Taozi looked at the time and was surprised at how late it was, because the time to meet her friend had long passed. Chige offered to walk her there. Taozi said that it wasn't necessary, and Chige should have gone home rather too. Before leaving, Taozi wrote her phone number on Chige's hand and asked her to call her later. Taozi said she would definitely return the favor, and ran away as Chige wished her good luck. Taozi called Chige's name, Lao Chi, and reminded him to call again. Chige corrected her by saying his name again. Finally, Chige was left alone. He remarked that Taozi wasn't very feminine like for a cutie. But also Chige added that today had turned out to be quite a successful day, and that made him happy. Toward dusk, the thieves finally returned to their office and reported their return to Brother Hua. One of the thieves apologized and said they lost sight of them and eventually lost them altogether. Brother Hua got angry and asked how the guys even had the courage to come back to him after such a thing. The thief said that Brother Hua should take it easy, for they would soon set out again to find him. Brother Hua kicked the thief in the stomach and angrily told him to search his butt. After which, Brother Hua added that the thieves couldn't even find 2 children and there was no use for them at all. Brother Hua continued to kick the thief and continuously called them useless trash. Gudan said that if Brother Hua had something to say, let him say it, but it was worth it to calm down. Gudan also added that Chige had registered with them, and thus the thieves had his home address. Brother Hua said that it wasn't worth waiting then, and he would send someone to beat up Chige. Afterwards, Brother Hua asked him to bring his phone. Brother Hua told everyone to be quiet while he spoke, for this was a very important person. Raising the phone to his ear, Brother Hua again asked the thieves to be quiet for a while he solved the problem. A certain old man Chu picked up the phone and said hello to Brother Hua, calling him Little Man. The nickname was familiar to the other thieves, even a newcomer to their group knew who it was. The elderly man was the head of the Emerald Wolf Gang, Huo Yue. The old man asked if Brother Hua was in trouble. Brother Hua nervously said that he needed some people from the Emerald Wolf Gang. Old Man Chu said that the people from his family were not for Brother Hua's games. Brother Hua said that Chige's brat had broken his rules, and because of this offense, Brother Hua wanted to punish Chige a little for what he had done. Opening his eyes, Chige found himself in a strange place. The entire floor was made of some black liquid, and a void surrounded him. Some voice said that finally and mentioned Chige's name. Chige himself was silent in response. Chige asked the supernatural creature to stop hiding and come out in front of him. After which, Chige noticed the water beneath him began to disperse, and a voice kept repeating that it had found him. The voice began to laugh with all its might as the water parted to make a silhouette. Chige struck the water and asked the Supreme Being what made him laugh so much in this situation. Looking at his hand, Chige noticed a large cut on it. He didn't realize at all how or when he had managed to cut himself. As he sat on the water, some glowing blue streaks began to surround Chiga. Chiga was startled, and couldn't understand what nonsense had started to surround him, and why he was even in this dimension in the first place. The blue streaks grabbed Chiga and wrapped around his entire body, restricting his ability to move. Chiga finally woke up from that horrible dream, except that the pain seemed quite real. Shigi lifted his palm and saw that his hand was indeed slashed. Chiga got up from the bed and noticed that his arm was bleeding. Moreover, the wound was the same as in the dream. On his bed, Chigo noticed the very sword that the courier brought him at 4 in the morning. Chigi assumed that he was sleepwalking and might have cut himself, but that was a delusional theory, and he threw the dagger away. But Chigo had thrown the dagger into the living room before and remembered it well. Perhaps he really was sleepwalking. After washing his hands, Chige looked at his hand again and noticed some figures, but after washing half of them were already smudged. Soon, Chiga remembered that it was Taozi's number. He began to blame himself for forgetting it. The white-haired lad proclaimed himself, saying he could escape, and no one had the strength to hold him back. While the white-haired guy praised himself and was fully in the game, he was distracted by a message on his phone. It was an invitation to the Guanyu building, which was located in the south of Baishijou district. This made the white-haired guy happy, and he made a point to meet Chige once more. Chigi found himself in Guanyu Technology at the award ceremony. It was a game event. Chiga peeked from behind the door and believed that this company truly deserved to be one of the best. Chiga's eyes looked from side to side. All these decorations made the event even better. Chigi was starting to feel a little nervous. He didn't think he would be participating in such a grand ceremony. Everything turned out well as Chigi saw the message on his phone thanks to that very dream. For if it wasn't for that dream, Chige would have overslept and stayed home instead of ending up at the event. When Chiga tried to go out, he was stopped by 2 girls. Chige didn't know how to react and thought of what to say. The girl asked Chigo to change into the costume they had prepared for him. The second girl added that the costume was accompanied by a scepter. Chigi thanked the girls for the clue and said he would go change. The girls wished him good luck. A joyful Chiga ran away, constantly repeating something about the scepter. The girls watched him run in silence. The second girl remarked that she wouldn't have recognized him as a champion without the sash. The first girl said she was right, and Chige's face was quite ordinary. A tired Chigo ran to the locker room, apologizing. He said he came to get the champion's suit. Chigi asked where the suit was, and the man replied that it was by the window. After that, Chigi took a little break from his running for a while. He then looked at the scepter and rejoiced greatly, once again naming himself this year's champion. Taking the scepter, Chigo fell down in a hurry. He did not calculate his strength, and the scepter was too heavy for him. Someone stood in front of the lying Chige and said that his noise could be heard outside the door. Chigi looked up with an annoyed face, letting him know who was addressing him so arrogantly. The white-haired guy realized that Chige was the one who had gotten to the scepter and made a remark that he couldn't believe it. The guy couldn't believe that he really lost to a guy like Chige. As a sign of such defeat, it was as if he had lost his serious face. Chigo noticed that the white-haired guy's face looked bad, even more so to tell Chigo good luck after a lost match. Chiga finally got up from the ground and said that guy was just jealous of Chige, since with his abilities, all he could do was to be in second place. The white-haired guy swept up that the awarding was about to start and kicked Chige out of the door. Bao Bao, the host of the award ceremony, welcomed the audience and proclaimed the much-anticipated award event to have begun, after which he turned around and commanded this year's top players to come on stage in front of Bao Bao. Bao Bao announced that the guy holding the scepter was this year's champion Chige, and next to him was the white-haired guy and the 3rd player of the year. Bao Bao turned to Chigo and wanted to know how he felt now. Chige said that the scepter was very heavy. The audience laughed because of Chige's words, and dozens of photographers took pictures of the players of the year. Some girl said hello to the guys. Chige turned around and immediately recognized her. Bao Bao said he would next introduce the boys to the important guest of this event. A representative of the Kongwang group, Ms. Taozi, came to give her speech at the ceremony. Bao Bao said that the first thing Ms. Taozi would do is shake hands with the winner. She walked over to Chige and congratulated him on his achievements, after which Taozi started to walk away. Chige wanted to address her, but Taozi silenced him and said to keep it as their secret. Bao Bao signaled to Taozi that she could finally begin her prepared speech for the award ceremony. Taozi said that it was worth congratulating the top players first. At the same time, Taozi hoped that more players would join them, since they had invested 10 billion in Guanyu's technology. Chiga was shocked at the numbers he heard, though he didn't expect anything else from Kongwang. But during all this news, Chige was held in wonder by one more thing. More specifically, Taozi. Shiji's concoctions were useless, as in front of him stood none other than a goddess in the flesh. Chigi was a mere loser in his opinion, just like before. He was still a loser now. Still a loser. Chigi and Taozi are simply in different leagues. He should have forgotten her number she gave him. After the ceremony, the white-haired guy was sitting on the roof of Guangyu Technology. He was chatting with someone on the phone and reported that there had been no progress in Chige's Chige observations. The one the white-haired guy was talking to reported a sudden temporary task. Tasked with arresting a criminal, the white-haired guy laughed and said he'd do it no problem. Finally, the guy could take on another task, whereupon he clawed his fingers into his skin. And in one powerful motion, the guy ripped the mask off his face. It was a bit painful for him. Throwing off his jacket, the guy showed a yellow and orange suit with a zipper in the back. The guy put on his glasses and wished Chige good luck until he was in the observation spot. After conducting the ceremony on the streets, night was approaching. Chige was returning home at this time. Chigi didn't expect the event to end so late, but here Taozi left in a big hurry. Apparently she really is a busy person. But then Chigo had a one-on-one chat with Taozi. She said she didn't expect to see him at the ceremony, and that she'd return his jacket next time she saw him. While Chigo was walking, he noticed someone's shadows ahead of him, which meant it was a group of people. The grouping consisted of many men. They all didn't look very friendly and told Chige to watch where he was going. Chige was scared and tried to ask the guys what they wanted from him and why they were waiting in the alley at night. One of the men looked Chigo in the eyes and asked him if he was Chige or someone else. Chiga began to excuse himself, saying his name was Bagay and he never dared to offend such important people. Someone in the group yelled for no one to listen to what Chige was saying since he was lying. Brother Hua walked to the front of the group and asked Chige, did he really think that no one would recognize him? Chigi raised his hands for protection, for he realized that he was completely surrounded by enemies with no options to get out. This grouping was not at all like the past lackeys. Chige could not act recklessly. The group's patience came to an end, and one of the men swung the bat from behind Chige's back, after which he punched hard and Chige fell to the ground before he could even react to the punch. Brother Hua said that Chigo dared to provoke the Emerald Wolf Gang, then ordered the guys to kill Chige. There were dozens of strokes running through Chige's body. He was lying on the ground and couldn't do anything about it. Chiga himself realized that there were too many of them, and it was almost impossible to fight back. He would just end up getting beaten up in a dirty alleyway. On this day, Chigo realized many things. Becoming the champion, he was able to face Taozi again. And right after that, he was beaten up in an alley. After all the blows, Chige was still alive. So the gang decided to use other measures. One of the bandits chuckled and took out a knife and suggested using it on Chige. Suddenly, some swords started flying towards the faction. It emitted a red aura while flying. The sword flew straight towards Chige, and on its way, it cut the hand of that thief who wanted to kill Chige with a knife. The arm fell to the ground, and the bandit took hold of the arm and began to scream in terrible pain. A lot of bandits were frightened and couldn't understand where the blade in Chige's hands came from. The bandit fell to the ground and agonized in pain. The other thieves were intent on finding out what Chige had done. The thief who had his arm cut off raised his head to look at Chige's face and the dagger. Chige got up from the ground and held the dagger in his hands. One of the bandits told Chige that it was not necessary to do so. Something changed on Chige's bloody face. His eyes turned black and his pupils turned red. One of the thieves couldn't tell if he was dreaming. Chigo's appearance changed, and that blade flew towards him by itself. This couldn't be real. That's what the bandit thought. He looked at Chige with fear. After Chigo stood up, he seemed like a different person altogether. This could not be for good. Bandit took out a white jar from his pocket. He wanted to use this just in case against Chige. Soon, the bandits were ordered to surround Chige again and finally end his life. But even surrounding Chige, it was completely useless. With one sweep of his hand, all the bandits in the area were in dagger cuts. The bandits wondered how one man could be so strong with only a dagger. But one of the bandits said that there was no need to be afraid of Chige as there were more of them, and they could still win. Chiga swung again for another attack. The bandits started to run away little by little and shouted to the others to be careful. But even being at a distance from Chige didn't help them either. Immediately, each of them were injured. The remaining bandits began to run away in fear for their lives, and in fear that they wouldn't be able to defeat Chigo. Chigi was too strong. The bandits didn't care about orders, they only wanted to escape. Except Chigo was many times faster. He just appeared in front of the bandits and restricted their escape route. After which, Chige asked if the bandits definitely wanted to leave after what they had done. The screaming continued, the bandits dying one by one in a dark alley in the middle of the night. Brother Hua didn't understand what caused Chigo to turn into a completely different person, but he assumed it was because of the blade. Some kind of jar fell next to Brother Hua. Apparently it was Brother Dong who took the last measures against Chige. Brother Dong became taller and bigger in terms of muscle mass. He said he was going after Chige. That was the effect of the very pills he had for emergencies. 5 minutes earlier, the bandits were fleeing in fear from Chige, when as Brother Dong decided to take the pills. Brother Dong had increased in size. He was maddened by the effects of the pills, all in order to resist Chige. Brother Hua was perplexed as to why Brother Dong looked somehow strange, but soon looked at the ground. Brother Dong's face turned red. He laughed continuously and spoke a loose string of words. Brother Hua looked closely and noticed that the X capsule was open, and Brother Dong had eaten the pills. Brother Hua was shocked. He didn't expect that someone like Brother Dong had an X capsule. Brother Hua had once heard of these pills. It was rumored that they could temporarily increase adrenaline and break one's own physical limit. Under the influence of the forbidden drug, Brother Dong approached Chige and they exchanged glances. Brother Dong swung for a strike and began to shout, aiming at Chige. Brother Dong came closer and closer to Chige, and he just stood motionless. But during the strike, Chigo still reacted and dodged. The force of Brother Dong's punch was terrifying. It was able to break through the floor. Brother Hua watched, and was surprised that Chige was able to dodge Brother Dong's lightning-fast punch. After dodging, Chigo was immediately behind Brother Dong and decided to strike out already. Lines of aura came from Chige's strike. Brother Dong himself was sealed into the ground from the impalement. Brother Dong started to get up and laugh. He called this fight quite interesting. After which, Brother Dong's eyes turned red. He stood up and began to shout under the influence of the pills. With a quick movement, Brother Dong took Chigo by the face and ran with him, rolling Chige on the ground. Brother Dong ran to the nearest wall. Stopping, he took Chiga by the hair and lifted him up. Brother Dong swung with Chiga and hit the wall with all his might. The entire wall broke through, along with Chiga. Hua's brother was literally shocked by the strong effect of the banned pill on the man. Chiga was lying on the ground behind the broken wall. Brother Dong silently looked at Chiga, hoping that he had won. But that was not the case. Chiga literally teleported to Brother Dong and punched him in the jaw. Chiju decided to continue the combo. He jumped and kicked Brother Dong with his foot on the back of his head. Brother Dong fell to the ground and coughed out blood, while Chige stood victoriously over him. Brother Dong finally realized that Chige was just playing with him instead of fighting seriously. Chigo found himself behind Brother Dong and began to strangle him. Dong himself remembering his grandfather. Thinking back to his grandfather, he never expected to die at the hands of some lowlife like Chige. Brother Hua ran out from behind the wall and took out a gun and fired bullets into Chige's back. 3 bullets hit Chige's back, but he didn't even flinch from the hits on his back. Brother Hua was sure that he had hit the vital points, but it didn't have any effect. After dealing with Brother Dong, Chigo stood up and turned towards Brother Hua. Brother Hua became nervous and began to ask Chigo to stop being so cruel. Chiga completely ignored Brother Hua's words and made a dash towards him. After which, Chiga was behind Brother Hua and successfully cut him with his blade. And just like that, Chiga easily dealt with all the bandits in a burst of his strange powers. The blade finally fell down. Chige dropped it to at least take a little rest from the battle. The one who was controlling Chige's body complained that his body was weak, after which he asked someone already out. Some girl came out of the shadows and said that she was looking for someone who had been in Chige's body since the beginning of the end. The Chiga who possessed his body realized that it was the mysterious girl, Mary, who was behind all of this. Mary congratulated the possessor on his return, then addressed him as the king of the fallen angels, Lucifer. Lucifer said that this was his and Mary's last meeting, as he wouldn't be able to use this body of his own free will. Mary reminded him that 300 years had already passed. Lucifer told Mary to stay away from him. She wanted to object but realized it was useless. Lucifer asked Mary to look around and asked if this was what she wanted, pulling strings. Lucifer also pointed out that Chiga hadn't even awakened yet, and couldn't bear Lucifer's power. Giving Chiga God-killing dagger would probably end badly for him. Lucifer ordered Mary to kill both Chige and Lucifer himself inside his body right now. Mary didn't understand how it could be. She didn't want to kill anyone and was puzzled by it. Lucifer said that the dagger was already bound to Chige, and Lucifer himself could only speed up his awakening. However, knowing the body of a normal person, he wouldn't be able to endure it. Lucifer lost control of his body and Chigo fell unconscious. Mary immediately rushed to him. Mary sat down next to Chige and told Lucifer not to worry, saying she would do everything. She decided that when Chigo woke up, she would make sure that no one would find Chige. No matter how much time passes, Mary will wait for Lucifer until the end. And whatever Lucifer had done, Mary decided to just put it away. Soon, her hand began to glow. The ruined buildings and corpses also began to glow, as did Mary's hand. It was her magic. And very quickly, all traces were literally obliterated. Every corpse and destruction gone without a trace. While cleansing the corpses, Mary asked the magic dagger to rejoice after what she had done. The police department was working as usual. The guy went to turn in reports and refused to carry drinks to his co-workers. The higher-ranked man turned to the younger Zhao, wanting to know about the situation in Old Harbor last night. A man ran to the older man and reported that they had just received a tape from Old Harbor. Senior speculated that the Emerald Wolves were behind it, which meant the recording could have been faked. The cops started watching the videotape in the alley where Chige was beaten up. Very quickly, the camera quality deteriorated and literally nothing could be seen. One police officer said there was nothing wrong with the camera, it was the footage itself that was the problem. The older man assumed it was a problem with the magnetic fields, or a glitch in the monitors. The officer distracted the senior officer and informed him that he had received some papers from headquarters. The paper reported that the case, according to the Emerald Wolf Gang, was no longer their responsibility. The cops didn't know what to do. Some suggested sending someone to investigate after all. The elder took a closer look at the paper and read everything clearly, then remarked that their case would be transferred to the Chinese Dragon Group. The cops thought it was some kind of joke. Almost no one could believe the words on the document. The Chinese Dragon Group is a group outside the country's legal bureau. They are rumored to be a mysterious group that takes care of internal conflicts and top-secret missions. Senior didn't understand why there was such seriousness to this matter after all. The Emerald Wolf Gang was only relatively powerful. In such a case, it was unlikely that the intervention of the Chinese Dragon Group would be needed. The elder was trying to find some clues in the case. After briefly thinking about it, the elder came to the conclusion that Chige was most likely involved. The policewoman relayed another order to the senior. Their group was to complete the mission as quickly as possible. The senior hesitated as he wanted to gather more data on the subject. In the last lines of the document, the name of the person taking over the case was given. A certain Rumen. Old man Huo Yue and his gang were in a nightclub. He praised the man sitting next to him heavily, and also took stock of his ability to utilize superhuman powers. Someone came to the nightclub and approached Huo Yue. He was informed that Brother Dong had finally been found. Guy reported that Brother Dong was found in Old Harbor, but after that, he's not his own at all. Suddenly, Brother Dong fell to the ground. Others began to ask about what happened. The guy said that Brother Dong most likely went crazy. Brother Dong was in a similar state of consternation. He kept repeating something about the magic dagger and mentioned the monster. Huo Yue wanted to know more about the situation, and asked what had become of the others he had sent on the mission. The guy replied with fear in his eyes that no one other than Brother Dong had been found at all. Huo Yue ordered the others not to wait, but to go in search of his men. At this time, Brother Dong broke something in his hands. Brother Dong bowed his head to the ground and began to beg to be killed, then shouted about the magic dagger again. One of the men snorted and remarked that Brother Dong couldn't be saved by any means anymore. Huo Yue asked Old Flame's opinion about this situation, about Chigo and some dagger. Flame said that the situation is quite interesting, and Brother Dong is either lying or Chige is just like Flame. Huo Yue was surprised and asked, could some clumsy kid really be like Flame? Flame corrected old Huo Yue and said that people like him were called spiritual masters. Huo Yue believed Old Flame's words and ordered his subjects to go in search of Chige and his dagger. Flame set his hand on fire and told Huo Yue that he would personally take care of this task, so he would get the dagger soon enough. Already at home, Chigo was in pain, his whole body ached, and there was no way he could open his eyes. In an effort to wake up, Chige's spiritual body left his normal body, and he found himself in another world. Being in the spiritual world, all of Chige's wounds were gone. He couldn't tell if he was asleep or not. The dagger was behind Chige's back, and informed him that he was now in his subconscious mind. The dagger made a silhouette from the shadow. The shadow itself reported that it had summoned Chige by itself. Chige was frightened and started telling himself to wake up. Shadow asked, Molly, if Chige knows what a dream is, then what is reality in his eyes? The shadow showed Chige's past, his memories and what was going on now, then questioned if this was real. Chige wanted to touch these visions. After touching, the effect was as if it was some kind of screen. After that, other parts of the planet, its beauty and some places appeared around Chige. The shadow added that the whole world was marvelous in its own way, every part and aspect of it. The new replaces the old. Change is constant. This is the so-called reality in Chige's eyes. Chige asked what it is then. The shadow told him that the real reality of the universe lay in the elements of the... After which, Chige abruptly began to rapidly fall downward while in some space world. Caught by the red aura, Chigo stopped. He didn't understand anything, but he started to look around. There were many multicolored lines around Chige. The shadow swept up that everything was born from these elements. The fire element that came in the form of yang and could create both heat and cold. The element of earth, coming in the form of stability and representing the endurance of all life. And lastly, the element of air, which came in the form of change and progress. It didn't matter how the outside world changed, but the power of the elements was eternal. Shadow told Chige to learn how to control them. Chige said that the element was definitely not water, earth, fire, or even air. Rather, earth, water, fire, and air are the very essence of the elements that gave rise to the elements. At this moment in the outside world, Chige's wounded body was coughing up blood and suffering. So much suffering that even in the subconscious world, Chige began to feel pain and coughs. Chige was trying to understand where the feeling of sharp pain that hollowed his body could come from. Shadow swept over to see that Chige's fragile body was deteriorating to the point that it was even harming his subconscious. Chige asked if he was going to die. Afterwards, he answered his own question and said he didn't want to and wouldn't die for anything. Chi-Chi, who had fallen to his knees, began to ask for help from the Shadow to save his life. Shadow raised her hand and sent water towards Chige. They were clots of water that were not quite large. As they grouped together, they shrouded Chige's body a bit. The guy himself was startled and asked the Shadow what it was doing to him. But the feeling from the water was good. Chige abruptly stopped feeling pain, and it was pure bliss. Taking a closer look at his hands and body, Chige himself had already realized that he was already enveloped by some kind of water. But he was frightened, as he didn't understand why the water kept gathering around him. Moreover, the water not only enveloped Chige's body, but also drew some symbolism from it. Shadow said it was a rune element technique. This water was creating runes out of itself. Shadow added that this technique would help Chige absorb the element of water, also stabilizing his condition and curing his injuries. Shadow walked through Chigo and said that he should memorize this magic and move on with his life. After Chigo woke up, the Shadow's words kept rolling around in his mind, saying he should control the element, feel the power within him, live on, and so on. Chiji's head ached terribly, both after sleeping and because of the fight with the Emerald Wolf Gang. Chigi heard some voices at his door. The men were discussing Chige's door and reporting it to Old Man Flame. One of the men reached to open the door, whereupon he was ordered to break it down. Old Flame ordered the guys to make a clean sweep and closely search for Chige and the blade first. Chi-Gi realized that it was a gang of Emerald Wolves and was perplexed. Was he now unable to hide from them as well? Once inside, Flame reminded them that the guy's task was to find the dagger and beat up Chige. A couple of the men checked one of the rooms and said it was clear. Others decided to kick in the doors in front. The man who found Chigo's room informed his co-workers that he had found the dagger and Chige's room. Chiga threw the nearest items at the men. They were a watch, a cup, and anything that were nearby. The items stopped the thieves as Chige sat by the window. They didn't expect him to want to jump off. Chigi agreed that he would jump off and told the bandits to watch and learn his level. Old Flame ran into the room and immediately used a technique from the fire under the title of Hellfire Fist. The entire wall was broken from the impact. One of the bandits asked the old man if he couldn't just burn Chige away. Flame said that kind of strength he wouldn't have been strong enough to kill Chige so easily. The other bandit pointed his finger down and added that anyone would have died from that height. But Old Flame wasn't going to quit. He told the other bandits to go up and look for clues. Soon the bandits saw the ladder to the roof nearby, and Flame ordered the others to pursue him. Chigi was surprised from how Emerald Wolves are crazy, and was all the more shocked by Higai with the flaming fist. Old Flame and his gang were already on the rooftop with Chige. Chige himself had asked to talk to the guys since he shouldn't have killed him. Old Flame said that he didn't need anything, not even money. He came for Chige's sake. Chigi reached his hand behind his back and asked Old Flame to just talk things over. After which, Chiga took out his dagger and threatened the gang that if they came closer, he would be brutalized. Old Flame took a closer look at the dagger and realized that it looked like the same magical dagger. Chiga started to excuse himself, saying it wasn't a magic dagger at all, and he got it from a gaming contest. Old Flame asked Chige to stop talking nonsense and swung around for his next attack, after which he hit powerfully, sending Chige flying backwards. Chige started flying towards the water canister. Soon he hit the canister It was quite painful for Chige, and his t-shirt started to burn. Chiga thought of how to extinguish himself and realized that there was a tank of water behind him. Old Flame said that if Chige didn't use his abilities now, he would just die. Old Flame asked Chige to show his strength. He wanted to experience the power of the magic dagger on himself. Chige started to climb the tank, when as Old Flame didn't give any rest from attacking, Chige turned around and nervously asked to wait. Barely managing to dodge the blow, Chiga inadvertently fell into a large water tank. The bandits were unhappy from Chige as he couldn't take a single hit from Old Flame. Later, one of the bandits reported that Chige had fallen into the tank. Old Flame told his subjects to go and retrieve the magical dagger, then deal with Chige as they pleased. Chiga began to flounder in the water, falling into the tank. He dodged a near hit, but was caught in another danger. The bandits climbed the tank and ordered Chige to put the dagger in their hands. Old Flame was watching from the dal while the bandits were yelling what to do with Chige. Chiga himself lost his strength and started sinking to the bottom of the tank. He already lacked the strength to get out. The air in Chiga's lungs was running out, and he kept sinking deeper and deeper. But he didn't want to die. Dagger turned to Chigo again and asked Chigo if he wanted to live, and if so, he needed to remember the magic circle with runes. Chiga began to slowly remember the dream he was in, and what the shadow was showing him. Lucifer appeared above Chigo and extended his hand over Chige. This caused the blade to inscribe runes. On Chige's chest drew the magic that Lucifer did. It began to glow a bright blue color. Chige opened his eyes, and his gaze was much more confident now. Apparently the magic had worked. Coming to his senses, Chigo began to draw the ritual magic runes with his finger, from memory. Finished, a circle of runes came out. The rune circle began to spit out lightning from the magic around it. The water began to gather in a circle, making something like a whirlpool underwater. The bandits noticed that everything became quiet under the water. They assumed that Chige had died. The bandits have signaled to Old Flame that apparently Chige is dead, and they'll climb into the tank to retrieve the dagger. Something distracted the bandits. It was something like an earthquake, but it was only the tank shaking. As soon as the bandits realized the sound was coming from the tank, one of them was grabbed by a hand out of the water. Then while the bandit was screaming, he was dragged to the very bottom of the water tank. The other bandit didn't realize what was happening and threw his club out of his hands out of fright. The bandit started yelling and asking Old Flame for help while he calmly finished his cigarette. After which he began to burn and with a face full of excitement was glad that it was finally going to be interesting. Old Flame was waiting for Chige's attack, preparing his fire. While doing so, a large jet of water flew out at Flame. Flame expected Chigo's attack and repeated many times that Chige was nowhere near equal to him in strength. To Flame's surprise, his fiery fist began to vaporize under the pressure of Ji's strong water Chige. Old Flame tried to restrain Chige as best he could. He didn't believe that Chige would be stronger. Soon Flame was washed away from the rush of water altogether, his fire completely extinguished. When the water did weaken, Flame fell backwards helplessly after a clash of water and fire. Old Flame couldn't understand how Chiga had such strength. Apparently he had underestimated him too much. Chigi rose from the tank and looked at Flame. His body was enveloped by the jets of water, and he was calm. The bandits noticed that Chige was still alive, and he hadn't sunk to the bottom of the tank. Chigi asked Old Flame if he was the one who wanted to see his abilities, but for some reason Flame was lying on the ground. Chiga boldly asked Flame to stand up instead of lying on the ground. Chigu raised his hand, and the tank began to defecate. Jets of water began to fly behind Chige's hand. The water made the shape of Chige's hand, but many times more. Apparently all the water was following Chige's commands. Chigu started pelting his opponent with water fists and mocked him, calling his fire fist and Emerald Wolfgang complete nonsense. Chiga swung again and told Old Flame that he should prepare to try out another volley of his might. Old Flame asked Chigo to wait a bit, or even spare them all altogether. Chiga thought of a name for the new technique and extended his hand to send his new technique into the attack. But for some reason, it didn't work out, and a stream of water flew in a completely different direction, showering Chige completely. Chigo couldn't understand what had happened, but he speculated that his strength might have run out. Chigu didn't think he could draw the magic circle and runes in time again. Old Flame noticed Chige's problem and realized that luck was now on his side. As Old Flame realized, Chigo didn't know how to handle his strength yet, or rather was a beginner. Old Flame attacked again using his fire. Chige was not prepared for this attack at all. The fire completely covered Chige. He had no way to block or repel the attack. Chige's body was under the effect of fire. He shouted that it was hot and painful. Chige was floundering from the fire and soon fell back into the water tank. Old Flame asked what happens when water meets fire. Old Flame walked over to the water tank and squeezed it around as hard as he could. Inside the tank, Chige could feel the temperature of the water inside the tank rising. The iron structure of the tank could not hold up, and soon the whole thing fell apart at the seams and burst open. Chige flew outside the roof of the building and began to fall after the tank exploded. While Chige was falling, some yellow lightning rushed towards him. The white-haired guy, Ryuman, grabbed Chige's leg. Chige asked what was going on. Ryuman swept up, arriving perfectly on time to the scene of Chige and Old Flame's fight. After which Ryuman asked Chige to get ready to land. Chige asked him to wait for a second. Immediately, Chige flew upwards from Ryuman's throw while Ryuman was standing on the wall. Ryuman turned back and swept his eyes over to see that there were only a couple more people left who were falling back down. With lightning-fast movements, Ryuman rescued one after another bandit from the Emerald Wolf Gang. After rescuing everyone, Ryuman himself came to the roof and realized with relief that he had timed everything perfectly. A disgruntled Chige turned to Ryuman and asked him who the hell he was. Ryuman raised his glasses and proudly said that he was from the Chinese Dragon Group, or rather was their operative as well as their captain. Now Ryuman was already dissatisfied. He turned to Chige, complaining about how Chige had repaid him for saving his life. Realizing who the white-haired fellow was, Old Flame realized that he was in danger. After which, Ryuman turned to Old Flame and said hello to him, as they hadn't seen each other in a while. Chige asked, did they really know each other? Ryuman sighed and agreed that yes, they knew each other. It was the proclaimed second-rate assassin, Old Flame. But Ryuman said he didn't expect to see him here. Old Flame decided to start running away and threatened Chige that they'd be back later on. Ryuman said that he would go and quickly catch those guys, then asked Chige to wait for a while. Suddenly Ryuman disappeared. Chige was surprised from his speed, and was perplexed whether Ryuman was still human at all. Ryuman caught up with Old Flame and blocked his path, asking where Flame was running so hard to go. Flame noticed that Ryuman was pretty quick-witted, but decided to face him head-on. Before he could punch, Old Flame received a lightning-fast kick from Ryuman in the stomach. The blow was so powerful that it sent Old Flame far upward without any difficulty, after which Ryuman was behind Old Flame in a split second, and was already preparing another strike. Ryuman recalled Old Flame's words about how strong the wind was in those days, and after saying that, Ryuman threw another punch that sent Old Flame back down. Ryuman lowered himself to the ground following Old Flame and said that he had not heard his words. Chige watched the fight and realized how one-sided it was, and it seemed so simple. Old Flame found himself on his knees with no strength to get up. He was just coughing after the fall. Old Flame couldn't understand why Ryuman was so strong, but he didn't want to give up in a place like this. With his last strength, Old Flame got up and ran towards Chige. Ryuman, however, had no time to react to this. Accepting his death, Old Flame wanted to at least kill Chige, eventually taking him with him. Ryuman asked Chige to be careful since Old Flame was targeting him. Chige started drawing a circle of elemental runes, trying to do it as fast as he could to save his life. Almost completing the circle, he pleaded with himself. Just so long as it would work and he would stay safe. Old Flame didn't care. He was rushing towards Chige. Having already set his arm on fire, he almost reached towards Chige. At the last moment, Chige ordered the water to attack in front, and it enveloped Old Flame, creating a trap. Chige heaved a heavy sigh of relief as Old Flame tried to deal with the trap he had fallen into. Old Flame didn't believe that such a trap of water could hold him and tried to hit her, but his attacks were unsuccessful. By some miracle, the fire was bouncing back towards Flame. Chige was famously exhausted from this fight, but he happily hoped that he had finally won over Old Flame and the Emerald Wolf Gang. Soon the water bubble burst and the burnt Old Flame fell out of it. That was when Chige realized that he had won. Ryuman noticed that Chige didn't even need to be helped, after which he wanted to inquire for Chige's condition. Chige ignored Ryuman's words and started asking his own questions about who they were, after which he simply fell unconscious from overexertion, when as Ryuman pointed out that Chige had no manners at all. Ryuman called his co-workers and asked them to pick them up at the 7th rooftop, as there was Chige and corpses here. Tyozi was approaching the foot of Chige's house. She was glad that she was almost to Chige's house already. Tyozi looked up and noticed that the exact house ahead of her was where Chige lived. The girl remembered all the moments with Chige and his kindness. She wanted to finally give him back his jacket. A Chinese Dragon Group plane flew over Tyozi. She heard it but didn't quite understand what it was. On the city's food street, Chige was advertising an ice cream store with food while wearing a cheesy costume. Chige didn't understand why there were so few people on the street. Looking around, Chige noticed that the streets were empty at all. Soon, someone appeared on the street. Some voice addressed Chige. When Chige saw this, he was really scared. Some bandits said that they were tired while they were looking for Chige, but it was quite difficult to find him. Brother Hua stood out from the crowd and said that the time had come. He was going to take revenge and now Chige wouldn't run away. Chige started to ask the guys, after all, they were supposed to be dead, not chasing after him. Red lightning interrupted Chigo's cries, and a strange red rain poured down from unexpected clouds. Chige didn't understand what kind of strange things were happening around him, and why the rain was red. Looking down, Chige noticed how his clothes suddenly changed back to their previous clothes, and the suit disappeared without a trace. Later, Chige looked at his hands and noticed that he had a magic dagger in his hand. Chige recognized the dagger almost that immediately, but couldn't understand how it abruptly came into his hand. Some smoke enveloped Chige and the blade flew out of his hands, after which it began to smoke itself. The sky began to pull Chige towards him. He began to scream with hopelessness and simply flew away. After which, Chige woke up all sweaty and frightened, begging for it to end. Rising up, Chige's breathing quickened, and he tried to figure out if this was all a dream. When the adrenaline ran out, Chige's body began to ache terribly as his wounds hadn't all healed yet. Chige realized that he was supposed to be on the roof of his house, but now he was in a completely different place. Ryuman turned to Chige and said that they were in the sky. There was a girl standing next to him with a large syringe. Chige started pelting Ryuman with questions about why he was in the sky, whether he was dead, and a host of others. Ryuman swept up that Chige was on an airplane that was 30,000 feet above the ground. Chige relieved as he realized that he was alive, but what scared him was that the guys had kidnapped him. Ryuman laughed and said that Chige was good at making jokes. Chige asked what was going to be done to him. Ryuman sat down on the nearest chair and laughingly started driving straight to Chige's bedside. Approaching Chige, Ryuman asked Chige to listen to him carefully now. Ryuman said that he was one of the Chinese dragon group. He was in charge of everything related to the spiritual masters in the city. Pointing his finger at Chige, Ryuman added that he had been following Chige for a lot of time already. Chige didn't understand why he was being followed, or who spiritual masters even were. Ryuman said, mauling whether Chige wanted to admit it or not, but Chige himself must have noticed the growing strength in him. Chige thought about Ryuman's words. After all, he had indeed started to gain new strength within himself. Chige trembled and remembered the black dagger. He wondered if Ryuman knew about the dagger. Ryuman added that Chige's power was very strong. He had to study it and control it like a pro. Also, Ryuman said that Chige needs to be careful of one more thing. As it turned out, Ryuman and his colleagues did a medical examination on Chige's body, in the end of which they noticed that Chige had a bullet right next to his heart. In short, he could die at any moment. Chige remembered Lucifer's words about the fragility of his body, saying it would collapse soon. It all seemed like a nightmare to Chige. Ryuman clacked his fingers and said that they were heading to a certain place, and if Chige was truly a spirit master, he would be able to save his life. Chige asked what would happen to him if he wasn't a spirit master at all, as Ryuman said. But Ryuman chuckled and added that given what had happened, his body should have collapsed a long time ago. Ryuman glanced at the radar and noticed that they had already entered the designated area, also asking the assistant if he needed to calibrate the landing data. Ryuman shouted that they were approaching and asked the assistant to calibrate the coordinates, for they were approaching the landing site. Chige leaned against the window and wanted to know where they were going for such a long time on the airplane. Chige saw some mountains. He didn't understand what this place was and what they wanted to do to him. The ship signaled for the others to begin preparing to leave the ship. Chige asked, did they really land on this island to put up a big fight? Once the coordinates were updated, the airplane entered the magnetic field of the designated area, and then the airplane began to shake. During the magnetic field pressure, Ryuman got up from his seat and ran to another part of the airplane. The magnetic field crushed Chige and he fell down, but he turned around and watched Ryuman. Ryuman ran over to the assistant and took her by the waist, adding that the magnetic field had gotten stronger. The assistant replied that Ryuman was as nimble as ever. Ryuman said that the nurse flattered him, and she was beautiful. Mia stepped out of the control booth and asked Ryuman how long he was going to keep the nurse like this. Ryuman immediately removed his hands and nervously repeated that it was an incident, and he didn't want to hold the nurse like that. Mia ripped the handle off the door and said Ryuman had had enough of such incidents, Ryuman himself telling her to stay away. Chige asked Miyu not to come closer because she might step on him. Mia bent down and introduced herself. She was a mechanics expert from the Chinese dragon group. Mia sat down next to Chige and pulled his cheek, noting that she didn't feel any spiritual power from him. Mia asked Ryuman over his observations of Gaze Chige for the past 2 days, if he was a spirit lord after all. Ryuman sighed and said that he didn't really know if Chige was a spirit lord himself. Ryuman remembered the situation in the battle with Old Flame. What Chige had done was clearly beyond the capabilities of a normal person, and that was why he was being taken to the island where he would be thoroughly examined. Mia added that there are more and more spiritual masters who believe in a rumor of some sort, and it will be bad if that continues to happen. Ryuman said that if someone wanted to cause a commotion, they must have a reason to do so. Their mission still was to find spiritual masters, guide them, and subdue them to themselves, and nothing more. But Ryuman proudly declared that he was there for Mia regardless of other factors, and she shouldn't have worried about it. Mia got angry again, and reminded Ryuman that she had told him numerous times. She asked him not to call her sis, after which she threw Ryuman to the ground using a hold. Chiga asked Ryuman about his condition. Ryuman, lying on the ground, raised his finger and said that everything was fine. The ship said that landing preparations were complete, and they would be on their way to land in 5 seconds. Ryuman stood up and disgruntledly said that this was happening again. Chige was unaware of what was being talked about. Ryuman started to run and told Chige to follow him as the plane was already on autonomous landing mode. Chige, though, he didn't know what to think about it or how to react, but he had a bad feeling about it. Ryuman sat down in the chair and tied the seat, then asked Chige to run faster as the countdown for landing was going quite fast. Chige managed to sit down in the chair, and in trying to buckle his belt in the last few seconds, Ryuman hurried him over. And at the perfect moment when the countdown came to 0, Chige was able to buckle his belt. Abruptly after that, the countdown disappeared, and the sound of the turbine was also muffled. This alerted Chige. Chigo sat silently and waited for something to happen in the terrifying silence after the words of the airplane. The system added to get everyone ready to board and wished good luck to those inside. The ship then began to plummet rapidly downward, presumably into the deep ocean below the guy's bottoms. As the ship accelerated, objects began to fly around the limits of the airplane. The nurse and Chige screamed as they fell, with all the strength they had inside their vocal cords. A disgruntled Chige asked if it was really a landing because he thought it was a simple fall. Mia informed the others that they had entered the water and asked them to turn on the underwater mode, whereupon she turned on the sonars. This was preparation for a deep dive. The ship went lower and lower, 200, 500, and everything reached even 1,000 meters depth. The ship warned of high pressure. Mia gave another command of activating the level 2 carbon fiber nanoshield, and after that the dive continued. Chigi came to a depth of 1,200 meters below sea level, and remembered Taozi's words that the deep sea was both cold and dark. Clearly not a sight that would be called beautiful. Opening his eyes, Chige felt cold, just like Taozi said. Ryuman turned to Chige, asking if he had regained consciousness. Ryuman added that Chige had passed out so easily, and also the guys had almost reached their destination. Mia said that their space was ready, and everyone had to prepare for docking. Finally, the group sailed to the entrance. It was an iron submarine base, with yellow inserts on the hatchway. Mia said they were docking on the starboard side and no one was supposed to move while they were doing so. The speakers said that the docking was 100% complete, and the doors could be opened safely. Ryuman asked Chige to cheer up since they had finally arrived. Chige came to his senses completely, and immediately he felt like throwing up under the influence of the pressure. Chige ran around looking for a place to spew his vomit. Ryuman added that the door wasn't there. Chige ran to the nearest bucket and started throwing up in it. Mia wanted to know if everything was okay. Ryuman said it probably was. Chige felt better after his act, but before he could relax, Ryuman's hand was on the top of his head. Ryuman pulled Chige's head and said that they should already go. At this time, Chige asked him to let him go. While the guys were coming out, Chige wondered if they could have gone underwater so easily. Chige also assumed that they had built an underwater base, and by going outside, his theory was confirmed. Chige walked around the underwater base while poking everything in sight. Ryuman told Chige not to fool around. The stone that Chige had pressed on lit up red. Ryuman asked Chige not to poke anything else. Ryuman told Chige to ignore it, since he had already activated the night guard gate. Now it was possible to demonstrate Chige's strength live. Chige was surprised at the size and intimidating appearance of the gate, but still bothered to ask if this gate was true. Ryuman confirmed that it was the night guard gate. This huge gate had an aura emanating from it, and it was frightening. Ryuman also said that in order to activate the gate, one had to put a hand on it. Chige interjected for what Ryuman had said. Chige touched the gate and asked Ryuman if this was the way to do it. Chige's hand began to be covered by an aura that passed through him. This feeling was so strange to him, The sensation was like a mole light was flowing through Chige's blood vessels, penetrating his body in search of something. Mia swept the night guard gate reacted to him. The brat Chige was indeed a spirit master. Ryuman proudly said that his eyes were never wrong in finding spiritual masters. Something abruptly distracted Chige. The feeling became even stronger, and his hand began to glow intensely. Chigo flew away from the gate. It electrocuted him. At this time, Ryuman jumped up and down in fright. Chigo sat on the ground after being electrocuted and complained about the miserable gate that had harmed him. Mia scoffed at Ryuman as his eyes didn't prove to be so sharp if the gate rejected Chige. But it seemed strange to Ryuman. For some reason, even the night gate couldn't tell if he was a spiritual master or not. Mia started walking towards the gate and said Mole she would take care of it. Chige warned Mia that she could be stung too. Ryuman told Chigo that the night guard gate determined whether or not a person was a spiritual master. Chige asked about whether he was a spiritual master or not. Ryuman sighed and said it would be hard to know, as they needed a thorough inspection for situations like this. While Chigo was in thought, his eyes were distracted by Mia, who said that everything was clear and it was okay to pass through. Mia motioned for everyone to follow her as the gate communicated wishes of entering the island of eternal night. Chigo was surprised, and watching the gate open, he asked if he was in a dream now. Mia and Ryuman asked Chige to stop talking and hurry after them to the Eternal Night Island city. Once inside, Chijo's surprise could not go away, but instead grew more and more as he entered. The island of Eternal Night was an inverted underwater city made of white materials. Chiju couldn't tell if he had fallen into an illusion or not, assuming he had been fed something on the airplane. Ryuman asked him to be quiet and told him that this is where they were heading to. Approaching under the city, Chiga wondered to Mia and Ryuman how they would get to the top if they were upside down. Mia said they would use the thing that was behind her. That's how they would get to the top of the stairs. On the way, Mia added that the only way to get to the Eternal Night Island was through the sky elevator. Chige called the elevator akin to a roller coaster ride. The line for the elevator was awfully long. Most likely some important event taking place on the island. Chiga asked Ryuman why there were so many people there. Ryuman replied that it was apparently time to apply for university, which was every 3 years. In Chige's opinion, it was strange that even the school was in such a strange place. There were many different people gathered in line, each from different regions. Chige listened to the people behind him complaining about everything possible. The elevator asked everyone inside to sit down and not wander around in a circle. After another wish of good luck on the island, the elevator went silent. Chiga sighed and entered the elevator with relief. After a long wait, they would get to the island. Ryuman, Mia, and Chige finally sat down in their seats. The elevator warned everyone that it would be departing now. As the elevator started moving, Chige said that it was like a roller coaster, only without seatbelts. Chige started to hold onto the scarf of the man in front of him, thus choking him. Ryuman told him to quickly remove his hand. Chige was afraid he would fall down. Mia entered the conversation after all, and added that there was no way Chige was going to fall, and recommended that he look around. Chige turned around and noticed that everyone was sitting quietly, chatting and generally acting like they were in a normal elevator. Ryuman said that the elevator had its own gravity, and no matter how Chige tried to fall, or how the elevator was going, he would be fine. Ryuman got angry and told Chige that if he kept messing around, but he would throw him out of the elevator. Some guy heard the noise from Chige and Ryuman. He was displeased and decided to see who the sounds were coming from. Soon, Chiga came into his eye. He was immediately interested in him. The guy wanted to know who Chige was. During the trip, Chiga noticed that the track was turning around to reach Heavenly City. Chige changed his seat closer to the window to flaunt the view from the elevator to the island. Watching the city turned upside down, Chiga realized something other than her beautiful appearance. Chiga suggested that in order to live in the city, he would have to learn to live in a top-down like vampires. Mia told Chige not to worry about it because the energy core of the Eternal Night Island releases its own gravity, counteracting the Earth's gravity. Once Chige is on the island, he won't even feel that he's riding upside down. Ryuman added that there was a rumor about the nucleus, saying its power is scarier than a nuclear warhead. The owner of the island personally had to place it in the middle of the island. Chige was shocked at what he heard, then asked Ryuman if the city owner was even human at all. Ryuman replied that the face of the man in charge was most likely thick enough to protect him from the radiation. Ryuman went on to talk about the owner of the island, saying he's usually crazy and cocky. Clearly stupid, but he still thinks he's amazing. Chige replied that it was unthinkable for the person in charge on the island to do so. Having already heard enough, Mia got angry and interrupted Ryuman's stories, turning to the boys. Mia started beating Ryumen and Chige, as Ryumen had been spreading rumors about Mia's father the whole time. Ryumen added that the amazing thing about the master was that he couldn't realize that he was just short-sighted. Chige had had enough of Mia's blows, and said he'd rather keep quiet. Chige returned to the topic and gathered himself, and asked what kind of place this eternal night island was after all. Ryumen explained that basically this entire place was a simple school. This was surprising to Chige. While Chigo was still surprised, Ryumen added that this school was exclusively for spiritual masters. Chiga asked Ryumen to elaborate. Ryumen replied that almost everyone here had abilities. As those from the same clan, they should stick together. Chigo was confused that this place was underwater, as multiple prisons were usually built just underwater. So Chiga very much doubted that this place included some kind of school. Ryumen got angry and asked why Chige was acting like he knew everything. Chige was scared and suggested that his theory might be true. The man who had glared at Chige continued to watch the guys talk all the while. Still, he was interested in Chige. He became even more interested from the group's talk. The guy turned to the woman beside him and asked her to find out information about Chige. The woman replied that she was the guy's counselor, not his servant. The guy addressed the woman as Ms. Diana, and added that it was like a thick fog on Chige's body. This interested Ms. Diana. She said that there was suddenly a new spiritual master who could block Horus's eye. The guy assumed it was the backside of the fog, and quite interesting to him too. Ms. Diana stood up and picked up her lasso, then said she would go and grab Chige. The elevator finally arrived at its destination. The elevator said to disembark. Many spiritual masters went to the island of eternal night, and the elevator wished good luck on the paradise of spiritual masters. Chigi couldn't believe that they were underwater and that this island really had a blue sky with clouds on it. Ryumen said that Chigo was impolite and added that it was not true. It's just the result of immersing oneself in ecology. Chigo was startled and told Ryumen not to appear so abruptly. In response, Ryumen remarked how loud Chige was. Ryumen returned to seriousness and told Chige that it was already time to go, instead of constantly chatting. On the way, Chigo asked where they were going since the big gate was in the other direction. Ryumen simply asked Chige to follow him. Ryumen and Chiga reached some kind of fence, after which he asked what Chige was distracted by. Chige asked why Miss Mia wasn't with them. Ryumen said that Mia had other things to do, perhaps she went through a different route. As the daughter of the head of the island, Ms. Mia had these privileges. Ryumen joked that they too had privilege and thus would take a special path to get there. The guy who was interested in Chige was looking at the list of all the new students, but something seemed strange to him. Looking at the entire list, the guy noticed that Chige wasn't one of the people who were joining this year. But the guy wasn't discouraged. He had a feeling that he and Chige would meet again soon. Chiga followed Ryumen somewhere in the forest, and constantly noticed how strange the path was. Chiga didn't expect that he had to climb over the fence. Ryumen asked Chige to shut up and follow him. While climbing over the fence, Chiga accidentally fell down. Ryumen was waiting for Chige to get up. Chiga asked Ryumen what would happen if they were caught after they climbed into some territory. Ryumen asked Chige to keep quiet. Ryumen and Chiga found themselves in some ruined city. Chiga noticed that the place was too quiet. Ryumen hit Chiga and he flew off. Falling, Chiga asked why the hell he hit him. Some shot intended to hit Chige, but thanks to Ryumen's punch, they didn't hit him. Ryumen told Chigo not to stand still, but to run away. Chige asked Ryumen why he had brought him to such a dangerous place. Ryumen once again asked Chige to be quiet, as someone had already come to them. Chige had no idea who it was. Armed soldiers spotted 2 targets, after which one of them gave the command to secure the perimeter. As it turned out, those who came according to Ryumen were armed soldiers who were clearly not friendly towards Chige and Ryumen. Soon, the soldiers lost track of the boys, and reported to each other that the 2 targets had left the area. A tired Chiga asked Ryumen whether he was definitely talking to him for verification or not. Chigi asked if Ryumen still wanted to send him to a certain death to those soldiers after all. Ryumen said that people were not supposed to enter the area since it was off limits, which is why the soldiers were aggressive. Chiga shrieked upon hearing about the restricted area, but Ryumen silenced him so he wouldn't give away their location. Chigi and Ryumen looked through the bushes. Ryumen asked Chigi how many people he saw in the distance from them. Kige took a closer look and told Kige that he saw 2 soldiers at 11 o'clock. There were few soldiers at the 12th hour, and 1 hour too. But it was different there. Ryumen praised Chigo's good eyesight. Chige replied that he was always number 1 in the battle royal, after which he added that Ryumen was only 2nd place. Mole Chige had forgotten that for a while. One of the soldiers who was on the roof noticed the 2 intruders and informed his colleagues. Smirking, the soldier added that this time, Chige and Ryumen wouldn't be able to escape from them. Soon, other soldiers also came running to where Chige and Ryumen were hiding and ordered them to surrender. Chige was frightened when he saw the armed warriors, and was unsure if they would be able to escape. Ryumen sighed and said there were watchers on the roof. Jumping over the wall gave them away. Turning around to Chige, Ryumen was surprised and wondered to him about what he was doing. Kigo took off his t-shirt to make a white flag, as life was his first priority. Ryumen put his glasses back on and told Chige that there was no need to make any flags. After which, he rushed into the attack and said it would only take 3 seconds to deal with the soldiers. One of the soldiers gave the command preparations to shoot Ryumen and Chige. In just 1 second, Ryumen ran up to the soldier and was able to knock his assault rifle out of his hands. In the second second, Ryumen turned around and punched a second soldier in the face to get behind him. He then jumped into the air and began to turn back to the first soldier for one last strike. Ryumen kicked the soldier and sent him flying. But as he promised, Ryumen managed to beat the soldier in 3 seconds. The leader of the soldiers gave the command to the other soldiers from Bravo Team to enter the front of the attack. The soldiers rose from the trench and immediately opened fire on Ryumen from all directions. Ryumen prepared to run and asked the soldiers if they really thought they could stop him. Thanks to his lightning speed, Ryumen was able to dodge every bullet he took. With a deft move, Ryumen was able to jump high into the air and disoriented the soldiers. Soon landing behind the soldiers, who were puzzled as to where Ryumen had been, Ryumen decided to taunt the soldiers and ask them if they were looking for him at all. Chigi watched the scene as the soldiers shouted for shots and attacked Ryumen in every way possible. Some of the bullets hit next to Chige. Out of fright, he hid behind a tree and hoped he wouldn't get hit. Chi remembered how he constantly played battle royal games where everything was similar. But this time, the situation was real. Soon, the sounds of gunshots or the voices of soldiers stopped. Chige decided to look out from behind the tree. Looking out, Chigo began to look at the battle scene, and the first thing he saw was Ryumen. Ryumen stood gracefully over the unconscious soldiers and exalted himself, saying, as lightly as he could. Chige was surprised. Just one person could deal with all the problems so easily. Abruptly, Chigo was able to remember something important, and immediately feared for Ryumen's life. As it turned out, Chigo remembered that they had been revealed by the watchers on the rooftop, and Ryumen was within their reach. Hearing Chige's words, Ryumen realized his dangerous state and tried to react, but Ryumen didn't have time to escape. He was hit by a shot from one of the soldiers on the rooftop. Ryumen fell to the ground from the gunshot. Chige ran out from behind the trees and rushed to him. After which, Chigo started shouting at Ryumen not to die in his arms in any way whatsoever. A soldier on the roof with a long-range weapon told the commander that the target had been hit. The commander decided to see for herself and put on her binoculars to verify the soldier's words. Taking them off, she told the soldier that it couldn't have been that simple in killing Ryumen. The commander ordered the soldier to look again and confirm his target he had hit. The soldier was shocked. His target, the lightning guy, just disappeared from his seat. A few seconds ago, before the shot was fired, Chige had warned Ryumen of the danger. Ryumen himself barely had time to duck down to dodge the bullet, but looked like he was hit. Ryumen's balance was off, and he fell to the ground. But he was able to successfully dodge the bullet. Ryumen lay on the ground and smiled. He had successfully kept himself alive in front of the bullet. Presently, the general called the soldier an idiot and told him to immediately look for the lost target. Looking around different places, the soldier couldn't figure out where Ryumen had gone, since he had only recently gotten into it. The soldier soon found Ryumen. He was on one of the buildings and waving his hand at the scope. Ryumen brought a small gift with him. He was holding some sort of grenade behind his back. Ryumen tossed up a grenade and jumped up to launch it at the soldier's location, perfectly hitting the grenade with his foot. Ryumen added that it was exclusive to them, whereupon the grenade flew toward the soldiers and the chapter, whirling the air in all directions on its flight path. The head ordered to finish the game and finish Ryumen off, whereupon the soldier fired a shot. But his bullet stopped. The grenade Ryumen threw hit right under the shot. The grenade turned out to be a tear gas, and the whole roof with the soldiers was covered with gas. This completely disarmed the enemies. But that wasn't the end of all danger. Chige warned Ryumen that someone was attacking above Ryumen. The head of the soldiers jumped out of the gas and flew towards Ryumen, adding that their fight wasn't over yet. The head swung her iron gauntlets at Ryumen and threatened him. When they finally collided, Ryumen blocked a suitable attack, and a violent sound rang out. The head lowered to the ground, and Ryumen and her stood face to face, around a small layer of smoke. Ryumen smiled and asked the head if this was the limit of all her abilities and strengths. The girl lunged for another attack and told Ryumen not to be so cocky. Ryumen said he would never have been cocky in front of her. Mole, he wouldn't have dared to. Already angry, the girl swung for a punch and took note of how chatty Ryumen's tongue was. The girl slammed her fists together, letting out gusts of lightning, and added that Ryumen's chatty tongue was what she hated the most. Ryumen snorted and jumped back against the wall to avoid being hit by the girl's barrage of lightning bolts. But there was a lot of lightning, and Ryumen had to constantly jump to different places. Ryumen ran towards the girl and said that it would never hit him with such successes. The girl asked Ryumen if he dared to meet her straight face to face, after which, the girl hit the ground and unleashed her lightning sentence technique. But Ryumen easily dodged the blows by simply being in the air. The girl noticed Ryumen above her and was surprised. Ryumen then landed a straight punch that was successfully blocked by the girl. Chigi couldn't fully understand if this was a fight between Ryumen and girl, but he still continued to watch nonetheless. After the collision, both jumped away from each other and awaited the next attack. The girl swept up lightning Ryumen's abilities and said that he was not bad. Ryumen replied that there was still a long way to go, and addressed the girl as if she were Koppen's teacher. While Chika was surprised at what he heard, Ryumen offered to end their fight on a draw. Teacher Koppen rushed over to Ryumen, adding that they hadn't seen each other in a very long time. Teacher immediately hugged Ryumen with all her might, saying that she missed him a lot. Ryumen spat blood from the pain as Koppen hugged him too tightly, and with his last strength asked her to let him go. Chiga turned to Teacher Koppen and said that Ryumen might die under pressure. The teacher said that next time, she would definitely catch a recidivist of the Forbidden Zone, then told the soldiers not to pretend to be dead anymore. The soldiers stood up and went to train further. Chige asked if it was all a fake. Teacher Koppen turned to Chige and said that none of this was a fake. The teacher said that this place really was a forbidden zone, although most firearms are only meant to subdue intruders, but the sniper was with the real one. Chige was surprised that his life was really threatened. Koppen jabbed her finger at Chige and asked Ryumen about who that guy was. Ryumen bent over to Teacher Koppen and explained to her about the identity and purpose of Chige here. Ryumen found herself enlightened on the subject. She had learned about Chige, and now understood what approach to have to him. The teacher said that with a pitch that big, he should be qualified. Teacher asked Chiga if he had come here to become a true spiritual master. Ryumen told Chigo not to celebrate too soon, for they would still be testing whether Chige was capable of. Ryumen also added that he should have checked in with the medical department first and foremost. The group had already arrived at the corridor of the medical ward leading to the laboratory. Chigi wanted to really know if he could get superpowers. The teacher replied that they would find out after the results. Ryumen remarked that Chige looked very happy. The doors to the lab opened. Chige asked the teacher if there were strange powers. The teacher replied that it depended on the aspect. Chigi walked a bit to the lab and said that he didn't even want to do it so quickly. Ryumen kicked Chigi inside and told him to immediately go for an inspection and not to say much. The doors closed and Chige shouted to Ryumen that he had a very bad temper and said that Ryumen needed an examination too. Looking around the entire laboratory, Chige noticed that this place was very strange. There was no one in the lab at all, and it was dead silent. There was a structure in the middle of the lab itself, but there was no way of knowing what it was for. Chige started shouting to the entire lab that he had come to inspect, in an effort to find someone at least. Soon someone turned to the waiting Chiga. The flying white ball told Chige to lie down. Chigi was startled and recoiled before asking what that flying thing was. Chiga was skeptical of the robot's words, but decided to listen and began to lie down on the structure. As Chige lay down, a blue screen with a scanner appeared in front of his eyes and began to search for information. The robot was silent for a long time, but finally said that Chige had no records, which meant that he was not a student of Night Island. Chiga confessed and said that Ryumen brought him to the lab. The robot told Chige that a new file would be started. The second scan showed that Chigi had a ruptured artery, but other vital organs were normal. Robot also added that Chige would need to have a psychological analysis done, but the analysis failed. For some reason, the patient's mental powers could not be scanned. The woman watching the whole thing couldn't understand why. While Chigo was waiting, a woman flew up to him and said that a strong psychic power could prevent death, but Chige's was 0, even though it wasn't scientific. The blonde-haired girl was right in front of Chige. Chige himself was even more frightened. Chigi stood up and said that he was scared to death, then asked the girl not to fly silently. Chigi gathered his spirit and asked if the girl was a human at all, or the same robot. The robot next to the girl revealed that the blonde-haired lady was a minister of medicine, named Hibiscus. Chigi couldn't understand anything. He asked the robot what it was about. The robot replied that Chige was under special protection, but when the special protection fails, Chigo will simply die. When Chige realized this, he begged Hibiscus to save him. The robot said that if Chige could sign the body donation contract if he wanted to be saved. Chige picked up the paper and began to read it. Soon, he began to shout to the entire lab that his life was on the line. But Chige couldn't stop and insisted that he couldn't die so easily in this case. Chige asked the doctor if there was anything she could do about it. The robot replied that the diagnosis had already been established. Chige wondered if his mental strength was 0. Did his strength come from the black dagger or the guy inside him? The robot asked Chige to sign the papers and commit his body to research. Chige immediately refused since he was alive and didn't want to resort to such conditions. The robot said that medically Chige was already dead, but Chige didn't believe those words, eventually saying he didn't believe the results of the diagnosis at all, and refused to cooperate. Hibiscus was angry and silently looked at Chige. She didn't expect things to go against her plans. Chige started mocking the doctor, suggesting that she was underage and she should stop playing doctor. While Chige was asking to bring the real doctor, Hibiscus threw a vial of liquid at him. Hibiscus walked over to Chige, and the robot said the diagnosis was her responsibility. The robot also added, "Molly, if Chige doesn't believe, then let him continue to be a living corpse." At the end, the robot said that when night came, then Chige's strength would disappear due to the lack of spiritual power. Hibiscus personally added that Chige's body would be in her possession sooner or later. When Chige came out into the hallway, he explained that he had 0 psychic power, and the recommendation from Hibiscus was to donate his body. Teacher looked at her body donation agreement and realized that Chige was close to death. Chige said that he thought so too, but he was immediately distracted by Ryuman's voice that addressed him. Chige turned to Ryuman and asked him where he had been disappearing all this time while Chige was being examined. Ryuman said he got a message from Mia saying there was an accident in the city of humans. The teacher asked what class the danger was, not exactly happy. Ryuman said the danger was Class A. Chige asked what they would do. Ryuman replied that they would need to go back to the Chinese Dragon Group to understand the situation. Ryuman said that based on Chige's situation, he would need to be taken to the Chinese Dragon Group. But Chige refused. He apologized to Ryuman and insisted that he should stay here. Ryuman slightly misunderstood Chige's motives and asked him why he wanted to stay on the island. Chige said that Ryuman himself had brought him here and this was a good place for him. But anyway, Chige would die if he left the island. He wanted to keep it a secret and personally deal with it. A way came into Chiho's mind. He gathered his spirit and told everyone that he wanted to become a spiritual master. Ryuman scoffed since a person with 0 mental strength couldn't become one. But Chige recalled the incident on the rooftop. But still Chige agreed. He would take him this time and help him achieve his goal. Ryuman added that if Chige wanted to stay on the island, he had to meet the requirements and complete the island's registration process. Teacher Koppen said with a heavy expression on her face that the exams on the island were pretty sad. Besides, the teacher added, if Chige's mental strength was 0, it was almost impossible. Chige replied that it wasn't. Chige said that the examination only meant his current state, but he still had potential. Chige said that nothing is impossible because it simply hasn't been done yet. Chige's temperament was liked by Ryuman and Teacher Koppen. They dared to help him after all. Teacher Koppen took Chige to the registration. During their trek, she was singing along to all sorts of notes. While they were walking, Chige began to think more and more about all sorts of things. Hikyu wondered if it was strange what he had said in the hallway of the lab back then. Then in the corridor, Chige said that he would fight for the right to stay on this island. Kaing made a deal with Ryuman. For his part, he offered that if he lost, he would go by Ryuman's terms. Ryuman's condition, on the other hand, was that he would take Chige to the Chinese Dragon Group. Ryuman punched Chige's arm. Chige didn't realize what the punch was for, and immediately asked Ryuman about it. After that, Ryuman clapped Chige's hand and said that they had agreed on this point. Ryuman said, wishing him good luck, and went on his way. While Chige was holding his arm in pain, in the end, Chige said that he wouldn't forget Ryuman's words. Teacher Koppen noticed Chige's confidence. Teacher Koppen sang about registration time, constantly humming the same thing, over and over again. Chige asked Teacher Koppen if she was alright. She cheerfully replied that yes, she was. The teacher laughed and said that she really appreciated Chige's concern. It seemed to Chige that Koppen would be a big problem. Chige asked the teacher for this beautiful view. The teacher replied that it was the main building of the school. The visitors gave it the name Carey Tower. The teacher didn't understand what was being talked about, and said that there was a triangle-shaped building there. But that wasn't what Chige was talking about. Chige talked about the hologram. The teacher pointed out that it cost $30 million to build it. While Chige was looking at the expensive statue, someone pushed him, almost knocking Chige off his feet. One of the guys apologized for the push, excusing himself by saying that he was too busy studying. The other guy noticed the newcomer, asked about him, got an answer from Teacher Koppen, and was immediately told to go train. The guys left as Teacher Koppen motivated them to practice well. Chige wanted to know if they were the island's students. Teacher Koppen agreed with Chige, but they were interrupted by some shouting. Someone shouting for the others to stand aside. Some man was rolling towards Chige and Teacher Koppen. He kept shouting in the process. Jumi used to lift the skirts of all the women from their rides, for he could raise the wind a great deal. Driving through the students who had passed, Jumi knocked over the book of one of them and almost hit a second one. Later, he swept over another student who decided to sag over him to dodge a punch. Teacher Koppen got angry and asked Jaume how dare he use his abilities in front of the teacher. Teacher Koppen asked Chihei to wait for a while as she needed to stop Jaume's body received an electric shock as he begged Teacher Koppen to let him go. Teacher Koppen added that Jumi deserved such a beating from time to time. The other students he had somehow interfered with came to take revenge. Teacher Koppen told Chige not to worry about it, and they started to leave. While on the road, Teacher Koppen stopped and said that something was wrong. Chige immediately wanted to know what the problem was. Teacher Koppen turned towards Chige and said that the registration time had already come to an end. While Teacher Koppen laughed with embarrassment, Chige asked what he had to do in this situation. Some guy approached Teacher Koppen and Chige, asking if he could help them in any way. Teacher Koppen took note of the new student's beauty, and Chige asked who he was. The guy said his name was Simon F. Goober, after which he asked if he could help Chige in any way. Teacher Koppen laughed and said that Chige just didn't make it to the registration. Chige swept up that it wasn't funny. Simon said that Chige could sleep that night in the dormitory. Chige was surprised and asked again if he could, after which Chige turned to Teacher Koppen and asked her what he should do in this situation. Teacher Koppen added that she would take care of the registration and let Chige rest. Simon added that there were 2 beds in his dormitory, and if Chige didn't mind, he would take him. Chige didn't mind at all. Chige asked Simon about the meaning of psychic energy. Simon replied that it was one of 2 theories. No matter how much the world changes, only the forces of the elements are eternal. The world is built on the power of the elements, and they are manipulated by psychic energy. Chi remembered that the person in the dream had told him the same thing, but didn't explain about the psychic power. Simon added that this gift was also called the power of the gods. Chiga immediately wanted to know more about it. Simon said it was rumored that people in the past were helpless and had no power whatsoever. The dead god fell to the ground spreading seeds, and they possessed psychic energy for the mortals. Finally, all spiritual masters get a chance to discover and receive the full power of the legacy. To be a spiritual master now is much more difficult than in the past, but spirit masters are still very powerful, even with all the difficulties and nuances involved. And the spiritual masters are at the top of the whole pyramid, having 1,000 soldiers or more each. Just one of them is enough to hold the fate of the entire world in his hands without difficulty. Kigi was flattered at these thoughts. He wanted to become a spiritual master and rule the world by making his girls real ones. Recalling the psychic power, Chigo wondered about Simon's amount of it, to which I got the simple answer that Simon simply had good eyesight. But Simon added that it wasn't that simple. Chige couldn't come and pass the test without difficulty. Chige said he doesn't know and will check it the next day. Simon said that the next day is the competency assessment test, and the next 2 days it is the written tests and the final exam. Chiga thought about it and realized that the competency assessment might have included a strength assessment. And that was already the problem. Finally, Chigo and Simon arrived at the dormitory, more specifically Simon's door numbered 2038. Chiga liked the room very much. He even wanted to stay on the island even more than before. Kigai decided to get himself 2 large pillows. Simon let him if he liked them that much. Simon realized that this kind of interior, it must be Miss Diana's bad taste. Soon, Simon asked Chige to rest and said that they would see each other tomorrow. As Simon was leaving, Chiga thanked him and apologized for the great inconvenience. As Simon walked, he couldn't understand why his eyes still couldn't penetrate Ji's chi. Chiga lay on his pillow and wondered if he could pass tomorrow's assessment. Simon, on the other hand, didn't want to be disappointed with Chige. While Chigo was lying there, a black aura began to emanate from him, increasing with time. Lucifer appeared in front of Chige and called him a foolish person when Chige was terribly frightened. Chige got up and asked Lucifer how he could appear since Chige was awake at that time. Lucifer said that he was always with Chige. Chige asked him who he was and why he was always chasing him. Lucifer replied that he is Chige and Chige is him. Maybe someday Chige will know more about it. Chiga looked at Lucifer's sign and asked if he had given him that strange power. Lucifer said that it wasn't him. It was all purely Chige's own choice in terms of strength. Chige's subconscious asked Lucifer to help Chige, and he absorbed the water element on the roof to survive. Lucifer added that they would now be together with Chige and took out another dagger. Chige immediately noticed that this dagger was different. Lucifer said that now Chige couldn't hold that dagger, and he had to keep it all a secret or disaster would come to him. Chige didn't really know what he was talking about, but one thing was clear to him: he was in big trouble. At the same moment, another moment was taking place in the city of Zurich, in the country of Switzerland. Some woman was in her luxurious bathtub when she was distracted by a phone call. She immediately picked up the phone and, after saying hello, began to listen to her interlocutor. The woman blew a bathtub around herself and re-interrogated her interlocutor on what he had told her. The woman had heard enough and told her interlocutor to have them notify the National Intelligence Center, after which they needed to find someone to talk to. Soon the woman put on a robe and ended the conversation by calling her interlocutors a bunch of losers. The woman couldn't let Chige hide from her. She promised herself that she would find him. In Zurich, Jutian Mindao's company, the covert surveillance center, began to search the Asia region. The man shouted that he should have started his search with the internet, for no one could completely hide without a trace of him. The man also added that they should have found their target before the boss got angry. One man told the chairman that satellite reconnaissance of Asia had yielded nothing, and they were starting an extended search. Another man said that the East was too big for an internet search in such a short time. Milady still made it in time and immediately approached the chairman to ask if they had found a target. The chairman was immediately startled when he saw my Lady Mary found her, whereupon he asked her as she thought. Mary told the chairman to never ask her about it, whereupon the chairman said he had already looked for everything he could find. The chairman said the latest target is heading to the Chinese Dragon Group. Hearing about the Chinese Dragon Group, my lady was surprised. She didn't expect Chige to be in such a group. Mary ordered to find out where the Chinese Dragon Group brought Chige now. The chairman started looking for something on the screen, and soon said that the object was found in the Western Pacific Ocean area. Also, judging from the coordinates, the chairman had a theory about their meaning, or exact location. The chairman revealed his theory. He suggested that it was a night island. Mary was a little disappointed. The night island was the worst possible outcome of all. In the year 1999, Mary turned to the man born in the ruins and told him that he couldn't stop everything. But he replied that he didn't care about the end of the world, but he wanted to at least try. The ruin-born man didn't care about fate, and he wouldn't let Mary get what she wanted. Mary couldn't let Chige fall into the hands of a certain person, whereupon she told the chairman to bring Chige to her at any cost. Radar couldn't pick up the signal on the night island. We had to find Chige through a special channel. My Lady Mary stopped the chairman in front of the entrance to the special canal and asked him to wait. Interacting with the Chinese Dragon Group was pretty futile, meaning Mary needed to change her plans. The chairman didn't understand why they were stopping, but Mary had decided to do it without the Chinese Dragon Group's knowledge. In that case, the chairman wanted to know what they should do. Ms. Mary said she needed people to do that. Mary gave the chairman 5 minutes to find information about the night island, and herself needed to contact the man without arousing suspicion. It seemed to Mary that the person capable of doing this was on the island itself. My Lady Mary sat down, picking up some sort of book, and began to flip through its pages, soon reaching one of the pages that showed a picture of a girl and information about her. Someone was looking out the window of their building when suddenly a large whale swam up to the window. A short man with a staff in his hands was watching the teeth of a huge whale, and he was happy about it. But the man's joy did not last long. Soon the whale decided to swim away, leaving the man's joy behind. Another man with a cigarette distracted the low man and asked why he was sighing. The man said he saw a very bad omen in the night sky, which meant the night island was in danger. The night island's defense minister was a little confused as to why the island was in danger. The man walked around complaining that things were bad, then asked the defense minister about the object in his hands. The defense secretary replied that he held papers with information about this year's candidates. The man said the minister had nothing to do but sit in his job all day long. The minister decided to tell the man about the Rhapsody legend Niccolo Paganini. It was said that this guy sold his soul to the devil in exchange for superior playing skills. The man took the papers with the candidates, and looking at them, he replied that it was not a legend. The man said there were several candidates in 1999, but none of them were in town DC. The minister suggested that the devil of the 99-year-old prophecy went to the night island before the destruction of the world. The man said anything could be, and alas, his guess is all the more possibly correct. The The man was beginning to doubt his theory a little, but he was relieved that he was still on the island. The man asked the minister if it could be that the devil had indeed been reborn. The minister took a deep breath and said hopefully that wasn't the case at all, and everyone would be safe. At one time, Chigo had sneezed very badly, and suggested that he might have caught a cold so abruptly. But since he had an exam tomorrow, it wasn't the best time to get sick. Chigo folded his hands and asked the Lord to bless him so that he wouldn't get sick by tomorrow. But he decided to try practicing again on the water element Lucifer showed him. Chiga began to drive his finger around himself, slowly creating lines out of the water, making outlines around himself. In the end, Chiga created a circle, just like the last time on the rooftop when fighting Old Flame. A small clot of water appeared in Chige's hand. This pleased him, for he could finally do the element. Unfortunately, the blob of water was tiny enough on its own to shrink over time. But Chigo wasn't discouraged since water manipulation wasn't that hard, and Chige had potential. Chige dared to train at night with the goal of becoming the strongest, and sleeping was not in his plans at all. The next day, multiple candidates for the exam amidst the night island came together. The candidates came to the place of entrance exams, more specifically the training center of the night island. Finding himself in the midst of the crowd, Chige was very surprised, for he didn't expect to see such a bunch of people around at all. Also, Chigo was also a bit confused. There were a lot of people. But after all, spiritual masters, it was a rarity among humans. Some guy turned to Chigo from the huge crowd and asked him, did he really only just realize it? After which, walked out from behind the crowd to Chige, and added that actually every single one of the 500 people was a spiritual master. The guy introduced himself as Zhao Yao, but said everyone calls him Da Yao. Also, he looked like he was from B City, which was in China. Chige introduced his name and added that he came from S City, also from China. Zhao Yao jabbed his finger towards the crowd and told Chige to ignore them because only the elite could pass the exam. Some people from the crowd were heading towards Chige and Zhao Yao. They also turned to Da Yao. Zhao Yao noticed that these people had come just in time and now he could introduce everyone. The first was Cheeto. The thing that stood out in his form was his huge chin, which was his ability. He possessed the element of earth and could turn his chin into an impact drill. The second was Oreo. She could create refractive barriers of wind that could blend with any surrounding color. The last one was the chubby guy Jia Xiao. But Zhao Yao didn't say anything about his ability. Chiga himself decided to inquire and wanted to know about Jia Xiao's ability. The chubby guy said that he could eat whatever he wanted to eat. Oreo hugged Zhao Yao and said that he had the best ability out of the entire group. Zhao Yao said he would show Chiga her and took out a coin, then tossed it up. Zhao Yao caught the coin with both palms and clasped it between them. In the process, his hands began to emit a yellow aura. Zhao Yao's strength lay in the element of fire. He could heat his body up to 1,600 degrees. Such a temperature could melt even metal. Chige remarked that Zhao Yao's ability was amazing. Zhao Yao laughed and agreed with Chige. Out of nowhere, Zhao Xiao gathered air in his mouth and simply blew the coin from Zhao Yao's hands. The coin flew straight at the man. Chige warned the man that the coin was red hot. But noticing that the man gave no reaction, Chigo decided to help him. He began to gather water around him, shooting the water with the intention of extinguishing the coin. Chige messed up a bit and doused the man from head to toe. And also on the coin Chigo successfully hit, he extinguished the coin, and it fell to the ground still smoking a bit. Chige was a bit in misunderstanding. After all, it had worked out in part, but he brought inconvenience too. The man who was doused got angry, and he started walking towards Chige, clearly not with the intentions of shaking his hand. The man took Chigo by his shirt and asked if Chige was seeking death by playing with his water gun. But luckily the altercation was stopped by some guy. He turned to Ryan and told him to stop. Ryan let Chigo go and called him lucky to get out of the situation with impunity. A guy stood over Chige. It was a slender guy with neat clothes. He turned to Chige and said that he could do that too. What the guy meant was that Chige was just like him. He could use the power of water. The guys started to leave. Chige didn't understand anything and started to get aggressive, with the purpose of finding out why that guy had such a tone towards him. Zhao Yao said that they looked like they came from a very ancient family of spiritual masters in Europe, so it was natural to see them here. Soon, the very outgoing Ryan was flying into the air in the middle of the entire crowd, getting a lot of attention. Ryan fell to the ground in front of Chige and Zhao Yao. Chige recognized him, the same man he had doused. Some woman stood triumphantly ahead of Ryan. She was the one who had sent him into the air. Even though the girl was strong, she connected with a bad opponent amongst the whole crowd. Noticing the girl, Zhao Yao was immediately literally stunned by the beauty of the girl in front of him. Just then, Ryan's attention was diverted by the guys, his body beginning to stone from the element of earth. A stoned Ryan stood up and started yelling that the girl wanted to die. Chiga, watching the whole scene, was surprised and couldn't believe that Ryan was serious. Everyone was shocked as Ryan seriously started to attack the girl, but she was ready and was able to dodge it. Ryan was consumed by his anger and continued to attack mindlessly, not trying to have any sort of logic. The woman couldn't attack Ryan, for she realized that his body was too strong. Suddenly, someone's voice distracted Ryan and the girl's fight. Someone entered the hall and told them to stop. Large orbs of aura appeared on Ryan's arms and left him puzzled. The girl got those orbs too, and they also successfully immobilized Ryan and the girl. Oreo turned to her group and asked the boys to look at the stage in front of them. The guy who immobilized Ryan and the girl showed up on stage and added that the teachers didn't tell the others about something. The guy was a teacher, and he did not come alone, but with the entire staff. Later, he added that there was a prohibition against attacking or using force in the training center. As soon as a group of examiners appeared on the stage, all the students hushed, leaving the hall in dead silence. Nan Gongtse, head of finance of Night Island, said that if any students were injured, they could fill out a compensation form. Oreo immediately recognized the examiner and noticed that he had the 30th rank in the world. In his 25 years, he had broken the limit and became a super spirit master. Looking at Nan Gongtse, Chigu realized that this examiner was probably very strong. Nan Gongtse used his strength again and said that the following was not an example. Immediately, Ryan began to fall to the ground, and the girl stood there with no room for movement. Lying on the ground, Ryan laughed and added to the girl that there was no way he was giving up that easily. As it turned out, without his layer of rock, Ryan found himself unclothed in public, and that was the embarrassment for him. Nan Gongtse said that the Night Island, much less the training center, were not places for games. The woman beside Nan Gongtse laughed and remarked how cruel Nan Gongtse was. Night Island hands-on instructor. Ms. Diane said this year's candidates were very nice. Night Island theory instructor Julao Guai didn't understand at all what it was about. Chiga spotted teacher Koppen, but she had left the stage and was heading in the other direction. Chiga didn't understand what she was doing since she had to introduce herself to the public as well. Teacher Koppen wanted to put up Chiga's registration form since she didn't have time to do so yesterday. Teacher Koppen tried to do everything quietly so no one would notice, for that would get her in trouble. But she did what she wanted to do, and considered herself a genius for having done the plan down to the last detail. Ms. Diane turned to Teacher Koppen and reminded her that it was her turn to introduce herself. Teacher Koppen raised her head and announced to the entire room that she was the security officer of the Night Island, and was in charge of order for the exam. So Teacher Koppen was announcing the beginning of the 97th selection for admission to Night Island. Nan Gongtse went back to the details about the exam, and said that the exam itself would be held in 3 stages. After determining the result, teachers will see if the candidates can get to the Night Island or not. After which, Nan Gongtse said that he was handing the matter over to Julao Guai, as it was his turn to do so. Old man Julao Guai said that in the first stage, candidates would be evaluated according to their ability level, based on their maximum knowledge of the elements. As suddenly a strong glow appeared in the center of the hall that shook the ground a bit. This glow expanded and caused a huge beam of light to rush upward. The light depicted 5 beings: the earth element, creator Zhao, the fire element, burning Zhu, the wind element, Huang Kong, and the water element, Ice Hua. The representation of the elemental totem beasts was so vivid that Chige had to cover his eyes with his hand. The mark on Chigo's chest that Lucifer had drawn on him suddenly started to burn him. Chigi opened his eyes and saw the totem beasts. In a state of shock, he wanted to know what it was. Chigi turned to the crowd and asked the guys if they had any idea what it was. But Zhao Yao was in some kind of drunken state, and didn't answer Chige's questions at all from the word go. Chigo started shaking him, but it didn't serve any result on Zhao Yao in a strange state of mind. But it wasn't just Zhao Yao who was in such a state, the rest of his friends. They didn't respond to anything either. The girl who got into the mess with Ryan was also in a strange state, and was walking towards the beasts. Looking at the girl, Chige could realize that something was wrong with everyone after all. Chige took the girl's hand and squeezed hard, telling her not to go anywhere further. Old man Julao Guai snorted and remarked that everyone here was useless. Julao Guai tapped his cane on the ground. 3 mouths appeared on it, which made a very loud sound. Ms. Diane said it was again, as always, but somehow people were like this almost every year. The students came to their senses from the loud noises, but did not realize what had happened in the meantime. Julaguai silenced the disciples and said that it was natural for the spirit lords to become intoxicated from being so close to the elements. Listening to all of this, Chige had more and more questions. But the most important one was why he was not affected by the intoxication effect. After coming to her senses, the girl told Chige that he could have already removed his hand. Chige immediately apologized. But before the girl left, she turned around to Chige and howled her thanks. Julaguai said that there was a holographic projection in front of the disciples for testing new disciples. The first was Oreo. She approached the holographic projection with fear and didn't know what to do. In the test, the examiner connects the nerves of the participants and the totems of the elemental. This is the definition of the upper limit of the elemental. The examiners do this to find out whether the participants meet the qualification or not. Contestant Oreo passed. Her elements were a breeze and her qualifying rating, C, Liu Chu, from the elements of water, had a rating that does not meet the qualification requirements. Zhao Yao, with the element of fire. It matched and was rated higher than Oreo's, B. Chiga swept up that Zhao Yao had a rating higher than everyone in the audience. It was amazing. Soon, Ye Shoxiao, from the elements of the land, entered the test. Her rating broke all records, A. While everyone was marveling at Ye Xiaoxiao's success, some man told the guys to step aside. Chigi complained about the guy who made others back off, because he was too arrogant. On the way to the test, the guy silently exchanged glances with Chige. Silently, he wished him war mentally. The candidate entered the circle for the test, and soon his testing for the right of the Night Island would begin. Chigi didn't believe that the arrogant guy had obtained a rank even close to A, but the others were curious. But Edward Rosman surpassed all the hopes of others, and still earned an A rank with his water element. Zhao Yao observed that Chiga was good at foreseeing the future, for his prediction had come true. Even while standing far away from Edward, Chiga felt a kind of coldness and pressure from the large force. That was the power of a gifted water element master, at the A rating level. Edward's surname was of a noble family. As the bearer of the Rosman surname, he was the heir to the... Julaguai observed that some candidates were good, but unfortunately came from a devilish family. Teacher Koppen didn't understand why they were called the Devil Family. Nangong Che said it was because of their tradition. The Rose family chose only the strongest children for generations to inherit. The weaker generation is killed and sacrificed to protect the system. Such were the traditions of the Rosman family, as rigid as the very ways of the devil himself. Ms. Diane had made the point that the Night Island might have strong kids. The devil couldn't be strong here. It has been a long time, and a lot of candidates have already completed their much-awaited test. Another A-rated candidate has shown up. Kumamoto Musashi, who possesses the element of earth. Also, Simon Gruber, with the wind element, received an A rating. Teacher Koppen highlighted the outstanding number of successful candidates. Soon, the teachers reached Chige's sheet, but he didn't have office registration. Nan Gongzi immediately realized that this was the piece of paper that Teacher Koppen had stuffed inside. But Nan Gongzo decided to accept it, and everyone proclaimed Chige's turn and his entrance to the test. As Chigo was walking, he crossed paths with Simon, and added that he was very good in terms of strength. Simon chuckled and said he wished a lot of luck on the test for Chige, with hopes of success. Chiga said that it would probably pass. After all, this is just some weak test. Soon Chigo was on the spot for the test, 4 totem beast elements. But something was not right at all. The elemental beast totems were behaving very strangely. For some reason, the beasts had no reaction to Chige from the word go at all. They just stared at him. The disciples began to doubt Chige. He was taking up a lot of time and had no results. Chiga decided to try to use his strength. After all those words and fearing for his life, he couldn't give up. Chiga shouted, and a strong aura from the water enveloped him. This was his final decision. Chi-Ju rose into the air from the terrifying power of his water and convinced himself that he wouldn't die. Chiga was confident that he would become one of all spiritual masters and pass the test. But hardly any water appeared from his ring. Chiga only managed to make a small splash. Chiga fell to his knees, but his water rating was C. Though with difficulty, he gave up. But Chiga was uneasy about one thing. Why what he wanted to do didn't work the way he wanted to do it. Chiga was most pleased with his success in qualifying for the test, albeit with a small rating. Chi excused himself by saying that he felt high psychological pressure. That was why he didn't rank higher. Zhao Yao was happy for Chiga and jokingly said that he would cover for him in case of trouble. Zhao Yao invited Chi to have dinner with the guys to prepare for the tough test the next day. Chi-Ji is back to seriousness. He has a bad result in the first test. But in the end, there is still a chance. A joyful teacher Koppen came to Chigo and proudly slapped him on the back with her glove. Teacher Koppen swept up. She knew that she knew Mole Chige would not disappoint her hopes in him. Except that her blow on Chige's back was too strong, and he lay helplessly on the ground. Simon couldn't understand why Chige was ranked C. In Simon's opinion, he was clearly hiding something. Simon promised to himself that even if only in time, he would learn Chige's secret. At this time, he squeezed the paper hard and caught the candidate's attention. After which he convinced the candidate that everything was fine and he shouldn't have paid any attention to him. Miss Diana noticed how serious Simon was and said she was sorry for him. Julao Guy said, "Don't make trouble on the night island," since Diana personally took a man for herself. But Miss Diane said she had no control over Simon because he did whatever he wanted. Even the fact that Simon only came here because he was invited, so it's not as expected. Ms. Diane said she really wanted to do something much bigger than he expected. But Ms. Diane didn't know if Simon would be doomed to die in this place or not. Nangongse told Miss Diana. Miss replied that Nangongse was very boring. However, Nangongzi noticed something else worthy of attention from all the teachers. The man Teacher Koppen had brought in was very, very strange in all sorts of ways. At one point, Aishua cried for Chige even though he only had a C rating. Nangongze did not understand at all what was wrong that could happen to Aishua. Suddenly, another candidate diverted everyone's attention as he took his classification test. During his test, a huge aura of fire emanated from him and covered the entire test area. Chin Heng received a record-breaking A+ rating. Having the element of fire, he surprised everyone present. Previously, students hadn't heard of such a rating as A+, and no one knew where this guy came from. Nangongzi remarked that there were indeed a lot of unusual students this year. After completing the tests late at night, all candidates returned to the dormitory and slept in. While Chiga was sleeping, some terribly loud ringing started to disturb Chiga's pillow sleep. Chigi walked out of the room to see what happened, but outside, everyone was just running away. Chigu had no idea why everyone was running away, assuming that there was a fire. Chigi also started to run away. Once outside, Chigo and the other disciples saw a row from the military and their leader. All the students wanted to sleep, but gathered at the troop, all were anxious to know for what purpose they had been awakened. The troop leader took a deep breath before saying something to the students into the walkie-talkie. The leader shouted into the walkie-talkie that everyone was to go to the Black Forest to prepare for the second selection test. Chiga clearly didn't like this idea. He didn't want to go anywhere in the middle of the night. The leader added that anyone who doesn't make it to the Black Forest by midnight will be disqualified. Chigi was surprised from such rules, and Oreo pointed out that the forest was 10 kilometers away from them. One of the students immediately took off his pajamas and jumped into a tree, saying he would be the first to arrive at the Black Forest. The rest of the students also began to shed their pajamas, which had regular clothes underneath them. Chigi was in complete shock at everything he saw. People with clothes under their pajamas are tested during the night, but no matter what, Chiga had to take a risk for success in the second test. While Chiga was running hard, he heard some voice. Someone wanted to help. Zhao Yao and the others took hold of Jia Xiao, and he began to inflate as his element was air. Letting out the accumulated steam, Jia Xiao took off with the guys who were holding onto him. Jia Yu remarked that it was fortunate that they had Jia Xiao, for without him, the situation would have been many times worse. But some were ready for it too. The same Simon took a car so he wouldn't have to run around for nothing. Soon the group finally flew in, and landed in a way that wasn't the easiest way. Chigi was lying on the ground from falling from the flight, but was glad that they had finally arrived. Not only did the group with Chige arrive at the Black Forest, but somehow Miss Diana was waiting for them. In the Black Forest was the entrance to Yonggui's artificial training base. At this time, Miss Diana was rejoicing at the number of people who had arrived. Whereupon the Yong Island instructor, Ms. Diana, smiled and proclaimed the beginning of the second test. The second test involved going through Ms. Diane and the Black Forest with the candidates. Ms. Diana said the candidates had to cross the Black Forest before sunrise. Also, Ms. Diane added that candidates could use whatever they wanted to use. Another rule was that only the top 100 survivors would be allowed to take the test. The rest would lose any chance at all. And lastly, Ms. Diane added that Yonggi Island only accepted the strong. Chigi touched the entrance and was able to pass through the portal, ending up on the other side of the test. Chigi couldn't understand what place he was in, and why he abruptly separated from his group. Chigi was looking for his group and couldn't get in. At the same time, Simon was also lost in the forest. Simon soon realized he was lost, but continued to walk through the woods in hopes of finding something. The air in the forest reminded Simon of the air like in London. He should have gotten out of there as soon as possible. Simon used the Eye of Gore. It was that eye that could penetrate the past and present of all things. Simon began to peer through the forest with his eye. Soon he found 20 exits in the forest. Then Simon had one question left unsolved. Although there were 20 exits, there was still something that remained a mystery. Simon pulled out his watch and wondered which was the right way out of all the existing ones. At the same time, Chigo was making his way through the constant thickets of huge vine branches. Chigi was constantly trying to find someone, but the thicket of thorns hindered him a lot. Chigi was confused and thought that there was nothing useful in this nasty place. A small snake appeared from behind the branches and attacked Chige. He was famously frightened by it. Chigi took the snake and began to mock it, saying that it was the monster of the forest. But he still remembered something about the snake. The little snake looked very familiar to Chige, but he couldn't understand why. Soon Chigu remembered. The snake was similar to the totem of the Earth Elemental, that Earth Lord. The ground immediately began to shake and burn green. Apparently Chige had angered the Earth Lord. Chige didn't realize what was happening when as the snake in his hands began to glow. 32 people were killed in that forest, and it was already 1 hour before dawn. Ms. Diana remarked that she liked the rookies. Julao Guai said that the exam room was actually a forest with traps, and he added that Ms. Diana was cruel to the newcomers. Miss Diana added that only those who understand this riddle will be able to enter a new life. Also, Miss Diana asked the students to fight harder. When the blooming flowers are stained with blood, they looked more beautiful. Chigi threw the snake on the ground. It started to glow so strong that it literally blinded Chiga. Soon the snake changed shape. It transformed into an earth elemental totem and stood in front of Chige. Taking a closer look at Chige's totem, he realized that she was not some kind of hologram, but quite real. This frightened Chigo, and he began to run away in fear from the earth elemental totem, fearing for his life. But the earth elemental totem was many times faster and was able to strike Chige's back with its tail. Chiga hit the tree from the impact and started coughing in pain. The impact was very strong. Chigi thought that his bones would break under the snake's strike, but this was just a test. He didn't have to be afraid. But contrary to his self-belief, the snake did not wait and was already crawling towards Chige to eat him. Chiga started to hold the earth elemental totem by its teeth, hoping that it wouldn't eat it. Chigi didn't understand where the halo of the protagonist, the Black Blade God, and that Lucifer that was supposed to be with Chige had been. There was poison on the earth elemental totem's fang. When it hit Chige's hand, he was in a lot of pain. And soon, Chigo was reaching his limit. Despite all his efforts, he could no longer hold on anymore. Some sword flew into the snake's head and saved Chige from death at the last moment. Ye Xiaoxiao asked Chiga why on earth he was standing still when she stunned the snake. Ye Xiaoxiao jumped on the snake's head and took her sword, then returned to Chige's side. Chiji immediately recognized the girl. She also asked if Chige could even move or not. Chiga said he could, whereupon she shouted for him to run away, while she herself stood on the front line. Holding up the earth elemental totem, Ye Xiaoxiao also rushed to escape with Chigo. Chigi thanked Ye Xiaoxiao and remarked that the earth elemental totem looked very annoyed. Ye Xiaoxiao said it was a good thing since her partner once said that anger brings out weaknesses. Ye Xiaoxiao said Kiga to attract the attention of the totem, and she will do the rest by herself. Kiga had no other options but to obey, and began to pick up the stones. Chiga threw stones at the snake and taunted it in every possible way with sneers and words. The earth elemental totem noticed Chige's attempts and began to crawl towards him. Chiga began to gather water and prepare his Aoi Goyun technique to defend himself. Chiga was able to make a water shield and defend against the deadly attack of the earth elemental totem. Chigi shouted for Ye Xiaoxiao to speed up since he couldn't hold the shield for that long. Ye Xiaoxiao extended her hand towards the snake and said that of everything under the sun, the earth had the most important place. After which, Ye Xiaoxiao used the earth spirit technique, and the earth elemental totem was enveloped by the vine. This was immediately followed by Ye Xiaoxiao's leap, which she used to cut the earth elemental totem into pieces. Ye Xiaoxiao stood grandly as the stone from the earth elemental totem's body crumbled behind her. Chigi couldn't believe his eyes as he looked at the ruined body of that big basilisk. After all, Ye Xiaoxiao had killed him so easily, with just one strike. The earth elemental totem was slain. Looking around a bit, Chige noticed some burning stone with a stone sign on it. Chigi assumed it was a reward for killing the boss and immediately reached out to take it. But some kind of blow prevented him from doing so. Chiji immediately turned around and wanted to know who had inflicted the cut on him. After all, he was in a lot of pain. 4 men immediately emerged from the bushes, and they clearly didn't want to give up the stone so easily. It was Ryan and a bunch of other spirit masters. This time Ryan said that Ye Xiaoxiao and Chige would not see salvation. After which, Ryan asked Chige to give him what fell out of the earth elemental totem. Xiao said that some people are born weak and deserve to be losers, then added that she met such a person today. Ryan got angry and ordered his subjects to capture Xiao and Chige together. Immediately, the three guys with different abilities jumped to attack Xiao first. Xiao didn't have to deal with it for long. She deftly defeated each of the three guys. After which, Xiao looked Ryan straight in the eyes and asked if he had anyone else in mind. Ryan squeezed his stone hand and got even angrier, wanting to enter the fight himself. Ryan decided to show his technique to Xiao. He concentrated and his stone hand increased in size. After which, the two warriors jumped into the attack. The Blade Master and the Earth Lord will come together in one attack. And in the end, Xiao's strength was many times greater than Ryan's. It cut through his huge stone arm without any difficulty whatsoever. The last warrior, Ryan and Chige, watched the fight while Chige swept up Xiao's strength. Ryan's subject turned around and tried to attack Chige, but Chige dodged it. And the subject stuck his hand in the tree when as Chige was behind him, taking the stick in his hands. Chige swung and hit the subject Ryan on the head, deftly disarming him. Xiao pointed her blade in front of Ryan's head and said that no one would save him now. Xiao beat information out of Ryan, threatening to cut off his other arm as well. Ryan admitted that they were looking for magical earth elemental beasts, and when they found one, they wanted to wait for the beast to eat Chige and relax. Chige came out of the bushes and asked Ryan why the hell he was using people's lives as bait. Xiao said she had another question and asked Ryan what that totem was for. Ryan said that the only way to get this stone was to kill a beast of the same element as the owner himself. And they say if you collect 4 of these elementals, you can finally get out of here. Chige added that everyone could only get 1 totem, so everyone would try to take totems away from each other. Ryan reminded that only 100 people would be able to pass, and added that a scum like Chige wouldn't be able to do it all the more. Ryan and Chige started to argue, saying Chige's level was the lowest. He shouldn't have tried at all. Chige asked Ryan what he even had against level C. Ryan said that the island's resources would be wasted. A rustle distracted Chige and Xiao. Apparently someone had come to keep them company. Dozens of warriors surrounded the boys in a circle. They had no possible way out of here. Edward appeared in the middle of the crowd and began to walk slowly to the center directly towards Ryan. Edward walked over to Ryan. Ryan addressed Edward as master and awaited Edward's words. Edward asked Ryan if he had forgotten about the mission for his own gain. Ryan's legs began to shake, and he asked Edward for one last chance for him. Edward put his hand on Ryan's head and said that he was very disappointed in him. One of Ryan's subjects asked the others to stand back as Edward's element was dangerous. Edward used his power and formed a huge pillar of his water around Ryan. Whereupon the recently alive Ryan was turned into a breathless ice cube by Edward's one move. Ryan's ice statue fell to the ground and shattered, ending his life this time forever. Chige and Xiao couldn't believe their eyes. They didn't expect such cruelty. Chige couldn't help but ask Edward why the hell he killed Ryan for no reason. Edward said that Ryan's assignment was to collect totems and clean up level C waste, but he failed and should have been penalized. Chige realized that they were killing people for the test, but added that it was illegal, after all. These words caused Edward's subjects and him personally to laugh hard. They laughed from Chige's words. Edward said that Yongo Island only raised strong spirit lords, and there was no theory of justice. Only the best survived, and the useless remained in subjugation. Edward added that trash like Chige had to live in subjugation his whole life. But Edward also added that Chige wasn't worthy of living in this world at all, under any circumstances whatsoever. Chige couldn't gather himself from what he heard. He just didn't want to believe his ears. Chige turned to Xiao and asked if it was really possible to use force for his own benefit and intimidation. Xiao simply remained silent in response to Chige's words, for she realized that it was the plain truth. Chige didn't understand how this could happen, that he was trying to be like those paddocks. Edward chuckled at the words that Chige was trying to be stronger than his level at all. Edward said that even if Chige tried his best, he would still be an ant. Chige became angry at the words of the cocky Edward and swung the earth elemental totem around. And calling Edward a bastard, Chige simply threw the earth elemental totem at him. Edward didn't understand Chige's intentions, but just grabbed the totem and glared at Chige. Chige said that if this was what Edward so desired, then let him take this totem. Chige added that if one had to be strong, cold-blooded, and tough in order to become a spiritual master. Back then, Chige didn't need such an education, and simply turning around, Chige went. Edward said then Chige shouldn't have come at all and launched a few spikes from the ice. Xiao effortlessly cut the thorns so that they wouldn't hurt or injure the departing Chige. One of Edward's guards wanted to attack, but Edward stopped him. Edward turned to Ye Xiaoxiao and told her not to become an ant in Chige's company. Ye Xiaoxiao added that her mentor did not advise her to be in the company of scoundrels, because when lightning strikes, it is very easy to break down. The subject asked Edward if they were going to let them get away so easily. Edward replied that yes, because they wouldn't be able to get out of the Black Forest anyway. Edward added that even breathing the same air as such scum was disgusting. Over all this incident in the Black Forest, watched by each of the examiners, Miss Diana said how cold Edward was. Zhu Laoguai said that Edward had not yet grown up and only strived for the law of the jungle. Zhu Laoguai asked if Edward was at all worthy of staying on Yonga Island. Nan Gongzhou said that there was only one rule on the island, unchanging good and evil. Nan Gongzhou told Zhu Laoguai to just watch. At this time, Chiga continued walking. Chiga noticed Ye Xiaoxiao and asked her why she was chasing him for no reason at all. She came out from behind the tree and asked Chiga if it was true that he didn't want to be a spiritual master. Chiga said that if one had to harm others, he had no desire to be a spiritual master. Ye Xiaoxiao said that then Chiga wouldn't be able to leave the Black Forest, and Edward would find Chiga and then kill her. Chiga said, "Mole, no one said that he already didn't want to leave this forest at all." Ye Xiaoxiao wanted to somehow change Chiga's mind, but she realized that it was no use at all. Chiga said that he still couldn't be a spirit lord, but he didn't want to let innocent people be killed with impunity. Ye Xiaoxiao couldn't understand the message of Chigo's words. If he wanted to return, it would be dangerous. Chige told Ye Xiaoxiao the secret that he wouldn't be able to live his life if he left Yonge Island, as he didn't plan to do anything against his will. But before leaving this place, Chigo wanted to make trouble for those scumbags. Ye Xiaoxiao rejoiced and said that if this was Chige's goal, then she wanted to help him out. Chige didn't really want to enlist Ye Xiaoxiao's help, since she would lose her qualifications as an A-level student. But Ye Xiaoxiao said that she was going by the master's words. Mole, she needed to be happy and get on with her life. After which, Ye Xiaoxiao wanted to know Chige's name. Chi-gi reminded his name in a rather loud way, but they were distracted by some cry for help. Chi-gi and Ye Xiaoxiao realized where the sound was coming from and decided to head over there for help. Some thugs were beating up Cheeto and Jia Shao. After mocking Cheeto's sobbing, Jia Shao dispatched the bandits and spat at one of them, telling him to drink his saliva. The bandit swung his blade to attack and said he would kill Jia Shao, calling him a pig. But someone threw a stone at the biggest bandit and distracted him from striking Jia Shao. The bandit immediately asked who dared to do it and asked the culprit to show himself. Chi-gi called himself the grandfather of the bandits and provoked them in every way possible, bringing out their emotions. After which, Chigo started to run away from the bandits, who all chased after those words. While they were running, they were interrupted by some vine on the ground that grabbed their feet. Ye Xiaoxiao used the earth-binding technique and the bandits were immediately bound from head to toe. The bandits were tied to a tree, and Jia Shao and Cheeto could finally take full revenge on them. The screams of the bandits could be heard as Jia Shao sneakily beat them while they were tied up. Cheeto learned of Chige's plans to go against Edward and was surprised, paralleling his doubts about it. Cheeto had his doubts after all. There were many opponents of immense strength, and they were both quite weak. Simon appeared from nowhere and told Chige that he personally wanted to join him. Cheeto was surprised by the arrival of Simon's Highness, but even so, they didn't have enough men to defeat Edward. Simon agreed with Cheeto, but still believed he could have helped the situation in some way. The power of the Eye of Man, Simon could see the past, the present, learn the truth, and explore the area. Besides, Simon knew a way to stop Edward's cruelty and pass the exam. Ye Xiaoxiao was surprised at Simon's words, and immediately wanted to know his brilliant plan for victory. Simon said that they needed truthful teamwork, since Edward had destroyed the truth in his team with his actions. By Edward's judgment, everyone decided that only robbery and no means more could remain here. This suggestion of Edward's wasn't reliable, but the more people who joined, the stronger it became. Simon offered to reveal their secrets. Cheeto added that by doing so, they would also be able to pass the test. Chige called the idea wonderful. Jia Shao added that they lacked one element to the team, namely fire. But even for this situation, Simon knew what to do and pulled a small watch out of his pocket. Opening the watch, they released a golden butterfly from it, which began to fly away. Butterflies were called spies of the wind. They could find and follow any information, but either they or Edward could find Dayao, so it only depended on luck. Simon told the boys not to worry, as he had no interest in their confidential data. Chigo suggested not to wait and set off immediately. His idea was supported, and the team started walking. Along the way, Chigo suggested coming up with a cool code name for the team and started suggesting options. Ye Xiaoxiao called all the choices from Chige as bad, and he immediately suggested that she pick a title. Soon, the predators of the Black Forest were stopped by another group of freaks, and they defeated them. They caught the freaks again, in the same way they did when they rescued Cheeto and Zhao Xiao. Edward's subject bowed to him and said that all their operations had been interrupted. Edward got even angrier and decided to make time for some sort of scum cleanup. Already at 5 in the morning, Chige was already very tired, but he continued to do his thing with the butterfly on his shoulder. Butterfly turned to Chige and asked if he had found the wounded Shuanghua beast. Chige said that Cheeto confirmed the place and asked what happened to that beast he and Ye Xiaoxiao had hunted before. Simon replied that everything went well and they were already waiting on Chige. Chige rejoiced at this information. Cheeto ran as fast as he could in fear from the beast, and shouted that the Shuanghua beast was chasing after him. Chige sat on Zhao Xiao and asked him to adjust the place of the fall, then prepare for the jump. But as Chige flew towards Zhao Xiao, they miscalculated something and Chige began to fall rapidly. As Chige was falling, he told Zhao Xiao that his direction was not the right one. Cheeto kept running away from the Shuanghua beast, and Chige kept falling right in front of him. The beast changed its target from Cheeto to Chige, and immediately flew towards him. But Chige was ready. After which, and struck a watery strike straight at the Shuanucha beast. This strike had a terrific force. Everything appeared to be in smoke, and Cheeto tried to see something, asking Chige if he was alive. Chige extended his hand out of the smoke. In his hand was the totem from killing the Shuanghua beast. Chige was happy that he had defeated the beast and would finally get the water elemental totem. Simon noticed that Chige's strength was fluctuating, and it seems he wasn't hiding it intentionally. Simon turned to the guys and said that he had found a trail of fire elemental psionics. When the boys arrived at the trail site, they saw a large hole in the ground, as if from a missile strike. Ye Xiaoxiao assessed the battlefield and said that the fight took place less than an hour ago. Simon decided to use his ability and see past what was there. There was a fire elemental in this place. It's probably the one that made that hole. After he raised his hand up, a huge pillar of fire fell to the ground and began scorching it. And this guy was able to open the gateway to the outside world with just one single blow. This gate was forcibly opened by one guy, which means its power was terrifying. Simon told the boys that this crater was created by the power of just one man. Chigo wondered who it could be, and even more so it couldn't be Zhao Yao, so there was no guesswork involved. Simon said it was strange, because he set a sky fire, didn't fight anyone, and disappeared in the flames. Chige realized that that guy didn't set himself on fire. Plus, if he didn't fight, then why were there signs of battle here? Ye Xiaoxiao said that apart from him, no traces of the battle were found. Suddenly, Zhao Xiao found something. Zhao Xiao found the penny burned by Zhao Yao's abilities, so he was nearby. Suddenly, a shout from Zhao Yao was heard in the mountains. The guys were immediately distracted by it. At 5 in the morning, the forest was full of fog, but the boys ran at the shouts of Zhao Yao's voice. A net fell on Ye Xiaoxiao. She cut it and told the guys that there are traps everywhere here. But Simon said it was said too late, for everyone was already caught in the nets. Chige didn't understand why the traps were in such places, but being in them was painful. Zhao Yao appeared in front of the guys with a very vile face, not a single emotion on it. Xiao Xiao told Zhao Yao that they searched for him for a very long time and finally found him. But to his surprise, Edward's henchman and himself appeared from behind Zhao Yao. Edward swept their eyes back to Ye Xiaoxiao and Highness Simon, while Chige shouted to take him down. Edward told Ye Xiaoxiao and Simon that they had to make a choice. Edward put the choice of being buried in this forest with the ants or joining him. Surrounded by Ye Xiaoxiao and Simon, came to a unanimous decision and rejected Edward's election. Edward said that he was sorry because he admired Simon and Ye Xiaoxiao's abilities. But because of their behavior, Edward's patience had come to an end. Ye Xiaoxiao told Edward if he wanted to talk, let him communicate with her sword. Chiga didn't know how to get out, but suddenly Cheeto used his ability to change his chin. Edward asked Simon's Highness if he wanted to prevent him from carrying out his plans. Chiga began to fly at Edward while falling from the trap to take revenge. But Chijo's plan failed. Edward started to freeze Chije's leg, immediately disarming him. At the last moment, Chigo picked up one of Edward's ice picks and swung it at him. Afterward, he said that the icebox belonged to him and threw a piece of ice at him. Immediately, Chigo fell to the ground powerless, but happy that he was able to do something at least. Edward was beyond angry as Chige was able to slightly wound his face, leaving a cut. Chige said that next time, his punch would not only be on Edward's face. Edward said that since that was the case, he would personally beat Chige here and now. Edward waved his hand and told his subjects that whoever killed his opponents would give them the right to take the test. Chiga tried to explain to Edward's subjects that they could have left the forest without it, but Chiga's words did nothing for the guys. They firmly decided that they would kill Chige and the others. Chido's point was that these people had been brainwashed too much and their words were useless. Chiga turned to Zhao Yao to ask why he was on the side of these people. Zhao Yao was silent, and this infuriated Chiga even more. He asked Zhao Yao why he was standing silent. While Chiga was waiting for an answer, the man with scorpion arms pounced on Chige and said that Chige's head would be his. Ye Xiaoxiao observed all this and asked Chigo to be careful in such situations. But some man prevented her from going any farther. Being behind her, he swung in for a punch. Ye Xiaoxiao used the protective earth sphere and had time to react, placing her sword in front of the enemy. But even so, the enemy's strength exceeded her by many times, and she couldn't keep her defenses up. Ye Xiaoxiao couldn't withstand the defense and weakened, then leaned out a couple of meters away. Ye Xiaoxiao turned to the enemy and wanted to ask him who he was. Edward said for Xiaonbeng Wuqiang to deal with Ye Xiaoxiao with his own strength. Edward added that Xiaonbeng was one of the best earth elemental masters. Xiaonbeng himself said that people of his surname had yet to fail their quests. Ye Xiaoxiao got angry and said that she had hope in Wuqian's dignity, not that he would join Edward's side. Ye Xiaoxiao rushed over and said that she would not spare him for his low deeds. Xiaonbeng Wuqiang said that it depended on whether Ye Xiaoxiao had the ability or not. While Xiaonbeng was standing in a stance, Ye Xiaoxiao came in from the side and wanted to cut him open. Xiaonbeng Wutian's body was concentrated in his abdomen, as his body itself was as hard as stone. Xiaonbeng Wuqiang grabbed Ye Xiaoxiao's sword and said that she had good skills. Xiaonbeng Wuqiang counterattacked and made a strong swinging kick at Ye Xiaoxiao. Ye Xiaoxiao admitted that he had caught her, but she was determined to win this fight. Ye Xiaoxiao made a dash back and asked Xiaonbeng Wutian why he had joined them. Xiaonbeng Wuqiang dodged the punch and said that everyone had their own ambitions and goals. Ye Xiaoxiao continued to attack and added that good people wouldn't become obliging dogs. Ye Xiaoxiao jumped into the air and decided to use another ground technique, decapitation. But this time too, Xiaonbeng Wuqiang simply blocked Ye Xiaoxiao's strike. Xiaonbeng Wuqiang said that he and Edward were getting what they wanted, and he had already given Ye Xiaoxiao a chance before. Fists versus sword, equanimity versus rage. Ye Xiaoxiao and Xiaonbeng Wutiang's fight was interesting. While Simon was watching the fight of interesting opponents, he was distracted by Edward. Edward said that Simon had noble blood, outstanding ability, but if he couldn't be Edward's partner, he was a useless man. Simon said he was honored that he was able to get the attention of the heir to the Rose family. Chiga had finally defeated his enemy and could breathe a sigh of relief at the end of the fight. But immediately, someone grabbed his neck with a long tongue and started pulling him backwards. The man said his tongue was stronger than an iron cable and it was impossible to get out. Zhao Xiao picked up Cheeto and threw it at the man's tongue, which was successfully chopped by Cheeto's chin. The man immediately began to suffer the pain of his lost tongue and spoke out on Cheeto. Chiga walked towards him and immediately knocked out his opponent with a punch full of anger towards him. While Chigo was angry at the man with the big tongue, some fire crept up behind Chige. At the last moment, Chigo managed to bounce back from the powerful blast of fire. All the trees started to burn. Everything around was caught in flames. This was Zhao Yao. One of the trees that was under the effect of fire fell on Chige's leg, and he couldn't escape. Zhao Yao appeared in front of Chiga and started to apologize. He repeated the same thing time and time again. Chiga asked Zhao Yao whether he too had been brainwashed by Edward and his gang. Zhao Yao said that he was sorry because he had always dreamed of being a spiritual master. And for that, he needed to make progress, so he decided to kill Chige for his own gain.